everyone, and we are back here, finally getting ready for game number one. Listen, Lash, you and I have been talking, man. I'm excited, you're excited, and I hope all of you at home are excited because we have just a few more minutes until we get into game number one of the CCA Collegiate Cup viewing party. Now, this is the finals for the Collegiate Cup. We're obviously doing probably the best viewing party on the platform, if I do say so myself. Lash, what are you thinking?
Oh yeah, the best place, the only home here for the Collegiate Cup. And mind you, this is the last one of the Fall Collegiate Cup 2022. So everything is on the line. All the storylines, the book will shut in the final chapter. And this is the moment, the rise, the time to shine. It's all on the line here. All the marbles right passed up into the front of the table.
That it is. It all comes down to this. The final opportunity to walk away as a Collegiate Cup champion here in the fall season. And I know these players, right? We spent a lot of time not only studying these players, Lash, but communicating, conversating with all of them to get a good understanding of what they're expecting going into this. And it is all coming down to the wire. The action that we are about to see unfold is absolutely unearthed. It is nothing you've ever seen before because that is how close this competition is. Again, Lash, we're talking about some teams. I'm going to name two teams. I want you to name two teams that we got to watch out for and why, right? So actually, I'm going to start with you. Name two teams we have to watch closely that aren't your predictions, by the way. And then, I'll break a few down.
All right. I'm going to point out two major teams here that are underdogs, right? These are not exactly the most out there teams. And I'm going Caesar, Sigma, Baz, dropping in at uncontested Rocky Reels. Now, you may be wondering, this team normally isn't up at the top. That's right. But their veteranship is what is going to lead them up to the top and can be a very key integral part. And then a second team of Aimred, Capo, and Sap. Very similar storyline of veteranship that will lead both these trios, hopefully, I think, in the top 10.
Yeah, listen, I'm excited. I am very excited because, again, like you mentioned, these are some veteran teams that are going to do some big things or have the potential to do some big things. It's a matter if they execute on it or not, right? So one team that I know is going to execute on that game plan, I talked about it before, I'm going to talk about it again. It is Apple's pick and Fluger and his team. This team, without a doubt, one of the more stacked both collegiate and veteran zero build players in the space. They have made continual strides here in zero build, and I don't think today is going to be any different. I actually see this almost guaranteed being a top 3 team on the day, and so I'm excited to see how they're going to be able to hold it down. But one other team we got to talk about, it's the boys. It's Ben K. We got to talk about the man himself, one of the top names here in Zero Build and in Collegiate, right? Again, you'll see him on the solo broadcast just a little bit later today, so make sure to tune in for that. But these players have what it takes to climb into the top 10, climb into the top 5, potentially the top 3, but it's going to be a struggle for that top spot because, again, I stand by the fact that Jay, his team, are easily the strongest team on the day.
Especially uncontested Tilted Towers, their main drop spot. Yeah, they're our second strongest team on the day because to refresh your memories on our main predictions, right? Panda's going with Jaith and Pen and K-Burbs, but I'm going now ZX at Tragics. I can't move off them. They're too good, especially at the best POI of Cloudy Condos. Like, out of the top 3 POIs on the map, I'm liking them.
You know what? Listen, I'll give you that it's the best POI for solos, but this is trios, Lash. It's going to be a lot more difficult to manage around Cloudy. So, listen, shout out to SVG for breaking down all of the POIs for the season because we appreciate him. And that was one of those POIs that he really honed in on, being a big one to watch throughout the season. But from all the competition I've watched, I see the teams that land there in solos or even duos, for that matter, find a lot more success than trios. Because remember, trios is a whole different ballgame. When you have that additional player and you potentially get contested by another team, that takes that loot that looks so sweet and cut it in half or even in thirds. So I'm curious how it's going to play out, especially for these different teams that are going to be landing across this map because, look, there is an RNG base to Fortnite. And it always will be that way. You never know what you're going to get in the game, but you also never know what other teams are going to do when this game starts, because those first two games that we're going to dive into, you'll see players make maybe a mistake or two, maybe not find the most success off spawn. At that point, they're going to have to find ways to change it and come back here in the second part of the competition, which will probably cause a lot of teams to shift POIs. So pay close attention to where people are landing here in game 1 and 2, because they may not be landing here for long.
And we saw that a lot also in October, where teams that were a little bit on the back half of the leaderboard coming into those later half games, they started to switch it up. And normally that is something we see throughout major, especially final tournaments, where they're like, all right, we're not doing the greatest. It's time to switch something up. And if that means landing on a major top tier team in that moment, hey, by all means, I don't know. It could be a smart decision, because if you take them out, you're not only solidifying their points, but you're also big chilling on a great drop spot.
Yeah, big chilling indeed. It'll be interesting to see who ends up walking away with what. But I think it is safe to say Dave's team, not too many teams I can see actually trying to contest them. And even if they do, you can split it up. Just like Ben K's team up towards what was Sleepy, now Shiny Sound. Definitely a POI that can be split. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for everybody. But it is almost time here, folks. I hear the pitter patter of those footsteps getting onto the battle bus and getting it loaded and ready to go. And Flash, have you seen the battle bus recently? I think it's hyping up a big event that you and me are going to be attending later this week.
Indeed, indeed. If you have not seen the battle bus already, it's got that FNCS Invitational sparkle on it. So these players, hey, maybe they're just like, ooh, I feel that competitiveness. I feel the hype rising. So they're going to be dropping out of the battle bus with some big time hype.
Big time hype indeed. And I'm excited to get it started here in just a few moments. So look, we talked about the map. We talked about the players landing on this map. But one thing we haven't talked about, Flash, what's your favorite weapon of the season?
True. Favorite weapon of the season is the Ranger shotgun. And it's just the best. It's the best shotgun because you have that obvious range, hence the Ranger shotgun, right? Yeah. And it's very good for being able to have that one fragger in the trio to be able to get those shots, because you can easily combine it with a shockwave, go up, get the shot, and then combine it with an Evochrome. So in my opinion, I think that's the best one. But folks, it is time. Game number 1. The battle bus is beeping. Here we go.
And here we go, starting off with Brutal and Fear, both players that we're going to watch closely here in this competition. Scolds, though, interesting switch up here. I don't believe Scolds played with Paris and Brutal last time. Am I correct in saying that?
I believe you are right.
Okay.
I believe you are correct.
I like the switch up here. That's a good start here, especially in Synapse. Remember, notoriously, Synapse has been a POI that we tune into early on, and we see a lot of contestation. But this time around, Brutal, Scold, and Paris seem to have it uncontested.
They do indeed, and normally this is the POI of which Nounsy except Tragics have been landing at. However, they switched it up last month towards Cloudy Condos, and it worked for them, considering, like we had mentioned, they had won, and they are the reigning champions via October, who won by over 61 points. And now, hey, different kings of this drop spot. Hopefully they can be able to muster up that same kind of energy. I do believe it is very possible. However, the edge side rotates are going to be the main issue.
Definitely could be an issue, but I don't know that it's the main issue here. Think about it this way, right? So obviously this pool here for this zone does pull in their favor, so they're not going to have to do too much moving. Other games are going to be a lot tougher on them. I can't imagine like the October zones, for example, being put here and them still finding that same success. So it's going to be a tough competition for them to start off at. But for Redux, Shiesty, and Milks, they're doing a good job of starting off here. They have that Ranger shotgun you were just talking about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Redux knows what's good. I mean, hey, he's been in the chats over the Opens watch parties, and I know Redux has got that passion, that drive to, with his teammates of Pal and Milks, to be able to continue on their battle, and I believe they're going to be able to do well as we swap on over to Jelly, Edge for an Assassin. Normally was going to be Uncon heading in today, but a new team shows up into the battle.
A new team enters the fold, man, and that's what's so exciting about this competition. You can't predict what's going to happen here. But one thing that I didn't predict for sure is Ben K going down in the feed to What You Doing Psycho. So that's going to be an early start for them. And that's probably not a good sign if you're Ben.
Definitely not a good sign. And they had elims in the beginning of the elimination feed starting off. Literally, honestly, I think it was only 30 seconds off the spawn. And then they end up falling. Now, granted, I do believe I saw only 2 players. Was that the full trio that went down?
I don't think so. I believe Ben's team is still up. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they're still up because I only saw Ben's name from his team in the feed, but I could be wrong.
Indeed, we shall find out as we have some bush campers hopping around the Fort Jonesy. I believe this is a little bit of a metaphor in a sense, right? They have the army green on. They're ready to take the battles. They're camping around. They're waiting to hit the shots as Jelly sees the W key up ahead. They have Nostalgia right above, and oh, that's why the Ranger shotgun's so good. 134 to the dome. Jelly picks up their second elim of it alongside Edge 4 and Assassin, and now they're looking for that final third player somewhere out in the abyss. However, they're looking very good off spawn.
They are indeed looking good off spawn, but here, I gotta say this. Edge 4 is another one that we didn't really focus on in the pre-show, but we should have. We did not do him justice because Edge 4 has found himself in several competitions, finding success early on, connecting the dots to be one of those top names to talk about here in Zero Build. Unfortunately, we failed to talk about him. So let's talk about him now. His team has a really nice setup here on the map. They have potentially one of the best areas to work with, that Fort Jonesy area. And if they're careful enough, they can end up walking away with some eliminations and a very, very solid start to the game. So I'm interested to pay attention to what they do. But of course, it's Team Fluger, Moo, and Tax, who ultimately have a shot at doing something big here today.
They definitely do have that big shot. We mentioned them quite a few times during the pre-show, obviously Apple's prediction, and they have a big shot alongside Brysix, though. The big battle of Chonker Speedway getting into the mix in the battle against Cloudy Condo's team of Tragic, Except Denalzi. Brysix able to clutch up a little bit of a solo knockdown there onto Tragics. However, when Except comes around your side, you cannot avoid the shots. So Except, Tragics, Nalzi are getting hot off spawn.
This is a very interesting start here for Except. I'm curious, right? Obviously, in my opinion, Except is probably the strongest solo player of this team. However, the three of them together truly is a powerhouse trio, which I understand why you picked them. And I know you've been consistent with them last year, but one thing I want to mention, and this is one thing that we didn't see necessarily happen last month, but we've seen in the past, they get a little too aggressive and they find themselves getting caught off guard by a team that can rival their abilities, such as a Jayth, for example. So I'm saying pay very close attention to this team because realistically, they're not guaranteed this win.
That's true. That's true. Great point there. I mean, if you think about it, their veteranship along every single game mode plus individual performances definitely does bring them up a lot more. I mean, there's a reason why they have the highest net worth, if you will, of any team here today in the finals. So I definitely do have a little bit of a meaning, a up boost on that team, if you will. However, this is another team, once again, you mentioned them before, into the mix of NPen, K-Burbs, and Jayth up in the battle against Tamed, Shoof, and Lucid.
And this is a great start here for them. You see them taking down Lucid. All three, Jayth, NPen, K-Burbs, still in this, but K-Burbs is a little split here in this fight. He's going to need to be careful if he want to continue on, but Lucid officially out. The whole team now officially out as K-Burbs cleans up that final shot.
K-Burbs looking nice with that hammer assault rifle as Jayth, one of the players that did go down in the mix of the battle, but that's the unfortunate thing about off-spawn battles. So two of our major teams a little bit kind of hindered within the first instances, not even first zone closing in completely yet, and already two of our teams of Accept and Co and then K-Burbs and Co already 2 of 3 within the players. However, both have a consistent solidity of being able to hit that reboot, but I did see a couple cursors moving in there at the last moment before we swapped over there at Tilted Tower, so I think teams may be getting a little interested.
Yeah, you know, this is an interesting play, I should say, here from Curzy and Zax and his team. I mean, look, we know time and time again, spending a little bit of time in the storm is kind of a functional game plan here for Zero Build. But when you're on top of a balloon and you got another team underneath you, honestly, in my opinion, you don't move. You wait for them to make the move, and then you take advantage of them trying to rotate. I think that's easily the best game plan for this particular situation, but them playing in Storm is not necessarily an effective game plan, and they just decide to move along. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this out. Fortunate for them, though, they don't have to go too far as the zone is actually pulling in their favor.
And they have the rotation as well. You see the Chrome NATO out in the distance. You see the balloon right up ahead. And then you see the big old Flutter Barn right ahead with the Neo tilted kind of pillars of effect with the wind gliders up ahead. And honestly, this is a great spot essentially to put themselves into, especially at this moment. Granted, near a lot of teams up in this area. However, this is going to put them in a great spot, leaning in towards this middle of the area zone, just around the edge, so that way they can get a clean rotation, whether it mean after getting an elim or maybe disengage.
The disengage might be the play here, but you know, look, these teams that are in this are very, very high skilled, probably the closest in skill level across the board that we've seen to date in a Zero Build competition. So for them, they need to play a little bit more passive, a little bit more careful, because they genuinely don't know who they're going to be going up against here in this competition.
And one of those teams could very well be Moo, Tax, and Fluger knocking on your door and ready to break it on down. They already have, are you seeing this, Panda? 7 elims. They are ready to frag out today. They have came to play. I guarantee you, Apples is feeling good in the green room there.
Feeling good indeed. You know, look, this is a great start from them, and it looks like they're not slowing down. Fortunately for them, I don't know if you saw that, they got the chili chug splashes, which can only be grabbed from those new hollow chests that came out earlier in this season. So great play on their part, and great for them to prioritize, because that's not an item everybody can get. And just look at the sheer movement speed that Moo has right now in this moment.
My guy is zooming. I mean, yo, when you are a reigning Collegiate Cup champion as well, granted that being in solos, but yo, it adds a different kind of energy. Now, that being metaphorically and also in-game, you can see, like you mentioned, the chili choke splashes definitely paired alongside the tactical sprinting is a very good rotation, and especially when you can get it, it's a very undervalued rotation as well.
It is very undervalued. So for them, that's definitely going to be a priority, a staple, if you will, in their loadout. But now we switch over to Fades. Ballsy and MWK Amok here doing, I don't know quite what they're doing, to be honest. They're not in zone. I see them obviously prioritizing some of the stuff here in this vault, but they're going to need to get going. And if they're not careful, which unfortunately we almost saw there, they can end up bumping into each other in that balloon, which will just cause a whole array of issues for them moving forward. But now they decide to move, and players instantly look for them in the sky. Do connect a few shots there onto Fades, but it only takes his overshield, so he's still in it. He's still pushing, at least for a little bit longer.
My man Fades just saw the players on top of the balloon, and he said, oh, nah, never mind. I don't know if I want to pop up top of the gas station. You saw the marker go out there, and then a quick 360 turn it all around, and now they're in some big trouble as Mello and co are sitting in the bush. A big shield bubble comes down with alongside of the portal bunker, and Amwalk is down, so Fades, Ballsy now need to clutch up. However, with Sideshow, Mello, and Frosty on the W key, this is not a team you want to fend against.
Yeah, this is a tough team indeed, and for Fades already being down a teammate, it's not much that he can do in this situation. He just needs to continue to play this safely, but no, he decides, let's chuck some nades. I know Frosty might still be there, and immediately we see the shockwave play to disengage, but they need to slow down here a bit. I don't know that the nades will do too much with that shield bubble being up, but I do see it kind of removing some cover. So clearly, Fades, Ballsy, they're not looking to back down. They're looking to continue to press this team and keep them on the edge.
And the issue is now coming into rotation. They don't have any shockwaves. They don't have any launch pads. All they have is the balloon up above. Now, blessingly enough, up at the top, they had the team now just rotate just split seconds ago. So they're going to have a free rotation, and they pretty much dictate this rotate as well for the other team of Sideshow, Frosty, and Mellow on the other side. So if they rotate first, they're going to have a great priority position and then have to be able to get into the zone as swift as possible, which I think is the move for them.
It definitely is. They need to focus on getting into zone. They cannot afford to spend too much time here, especially with another team looming close, because a fight in the storm at this point will only spell doom for both teams.
Very true indeed, and they're basically turning this fight into a stalemate, if you will. They don't want to let go of this team. They're like, nah, you took out our teammate, it's over for you all. We are going to make sure we stand you into the back of zone. We take you out with all of our might, with all of our power, and so far, I believe they've done a good job of it. However, with this Rocky Reel zone, everything canyons wide and high, this is going to be a very tough spot for any of these teams to be able to get some good rotation going.
Yeah, I mean, look, looking at where they're angled right now, so many teams are going to be pressing on top of each other. It's going to be quite a tough moment here for a lot of teams, including Fluger, Moo, and Tax, who find themselves getting targeted by one of those new weapons here. Break it down for us, Lash. What do you think of this new rifle?
Honestly, I'm a big fan, and I believe.
Okay.
Are you talking about Evo Chrome rifle?
No. The rifle that came with that new collaboration coming in this last update. And you know it's a return here to Fortnite. It's a staple of what we've had in the past. You already know. You might know it as the rifle you find around the stormtroopers. You know that area, but most people would know it as the blaster, that E11 blaster rifle. That bad boy is honestly by far one of the stronger rifles for zero build specifically, which is kind of interesting to see how that'll play out. But now the shockwave plays are coming through. The bush is immediately out, and the shield bubble protects them for just a few moments. But when Fluger, Moo, and Tax have their sights set on you, it's going to be a tough day to finish out game one.
Sights sending them back on the foot, essentially. However, they do have a clean pattern. Now, granted, they obviously can't send that over. However, I do believe they do have a chance. However, Brutal, Paris, and Co. don't really have much of a chance unless they can hit those big shots, which indeed they do, and that is the edge zone fight that the other team alongside of Moo and Co. could not see out in the distance, so they're able to capitalize this. However, they do have that free pathing up ahead, so this could be a very good rotate for them.
It could be indeed. It could be indeed. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for a lot of teams here, but these final moments are starting to ensue as the fourth zone is here, and it looks like Redux there in the elimination feed taking quick advantage of it, because with 58 players remaining, it's going to be pretty easy to find some lone targets that may not have as much cover as you. So if you have those bunkers, if you have a nice elevated point of view, take advantage. Now's your chance. Walk away with some of those sweet elimination points, because you and I both know, Lash, how valuable they truly are.
And that's what Except Tragics are doing in the elimination feed as well. They pick up another Elim, and Redux Pal are doing the same exact thing. They're taking over the Flutter Barn, and they're making sure they take these window peaks, which are so crucial to be able to get those tags, and they're transitioning back and forth between the sniper rifle and the grenades to be able to retain this position, as well as utilizing everything they have in their arsenal is going to be huge, and they're picking off this team, trying to get at least a little bit of rotation here.
Yeah, trying to get whatever they can here to continue this game on. And look, looking at Redux inventory, he's prioritizing the grenades. This is something that we're starting to see more and more teams in zero build prioritize. So it's interesting to see how he's using it. Unfortunately, not going to find too much success with it right now. But looking at the shockwaves, honestly, in my opinion, having 10 shockwaves is definitely more important than having nades and shockwaves. So honestly, smart play on his part to take it. And he actually does a quick swap. You see that there. Picks the sniper back up and says, you know what, Panda? I'm keeping both.
Redux is just that special. knows exactly what he needs to be able to pick up the battle, and being what seems to be the fragger of this trio at the moment is going to be massive, not only for this rotation, the Shockwave sends it back, but it gets them in this position to pick off teams like YY Edge, like Janman, and Renegade Ranster on the brink of this battle. And this is where things get even scarier. This might just be one of our most stacked games of the day. 50 players clustered into this almost fifth zone, and now it's about to reveal itself, and fights are about to break out.
Fights are breaking out here as Shiesty Milks and Redux holds it down here on the edge of their bubble. Doing a really good job of pushing this team out and keeping them away. But with that big shot on the Redux, he needs to be a little bit more careful, because at a moment's notice, this team can begin to push in and just take shots where they can. So playing the edge of the bubble is going to be huge. And now the bubble is no more. This team can easily start to get involved here. And all it takes is a few nades or the spray onto the wall of these bunkers, and you're without cover.
And elims are getting heavy as well now. We just saw Nounsy and Co. get taken down by the hands of Moo, Tax, and Fluger. Right now, holding this position as well. So this is the maintaining opposition where we now see the players that know they can get active are getting active with all the elims up ahead. And they are pushing for more. They don't have any slowage down below. However, the Shockwave sends it back, and all chaos is ensuing as everyone's trying to get into the correct position, staying creepy as well in the porta bunkers.
They're staying in a position that is comfortable for them. Now, I think it's very safe to say that Fluger, Tax, and Moo have the most eliminations in this lobby, and it doesn't look like they're slowing down anytime soon. Immediately, you see the Shockwave plays come out as the shield bubbles are left, right, and center. Big tag there from Fluger, and he's going to get the knock. Now, though, will he be able to clean up the rest of the team here? Because there's so much happening. Every team has their own individual shield bubble, and Fluger is just looking for who's to take.
He's got the revenge in his mindset. He's like, I couldn't compete last month. Now is my time. However, Crumbler, Godkicker, and Snowy are looking to be a hindrance, as now Fluger struggling, gets knocked. Tax able to clutch up for a time being, but only 56 HP left remaining to be able to continue the pacing all around. Player jumps in, wasn't aware of YY Edge inside the porta bunker, says what's up, gets the knock. New team enters the fold, flicks him off like a fly out into the air, and YY Edge is absolutely chilling here on 14 HP. Another player comes up, and that's gonna be Grits.
Grits here. It's actually Seb's pick here. The Canadian players looking to do some big things here in this moment, as it is kind of just unfolding quickly. It's rapidly finishing here in these final moments as players like Aimred, Tax, everyone is going down. There's so many players going down so rapidly that the elimination feed can't even keep up. That is how quickly this game is changing. So watching close by, fortunately for Aimred, despite him being down, his team is still in it.
Cal is indeed still in it. That is very true here. However, Capo and Sap are holding down this position here on the back end. Moving forward as Mello have found themselves into the front side, ready for the Shockwave up, sends it up, decides to go away from the launch pad because it continues to move, get over to the front side, and this is the priority position of which they have hunkered down. They have players in the backside that they can be able to pick up onto, but the priority here is being able to get to cover, especially with the zone going up towards the canyon.
With only 4 teams still in this, anything goes as this game continues to play out. You see Merc going down. Grits left as a solo player, just trying to connect some shots there in the final moments. Doesn't connect anything, though, as the cover is dwindling. He only has a little bit of HP to work with left. If he plays this right, though, he can actually just get into the bubble. But no, unfortunately, he's going to go down. It's Velo going to take him out here and looking to finish this strong.
The final 2v2, Capo goes up into the air, gets absolutely beamed, but Velo, Trank, and Luke clutch up the first game, bringing it home with 38 points, a dominant performance, a team that we didn't even mention throughout the pre-show, coming out on top.
And honestly, a phenomenal performance there for them. A lot of the top teams that we discussed, nowhere to be found in the top 4. So honestly, exciting to see other players step up here. Like we talked about, this lobby is, again, some of the best zero build players across the board here, Lash, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. It's going to be crazy.
It is indeed going to be crazy. I'm liking what is prospering here. We could definitely see a different fade here in November. This is interesting. I'm liking it.
I'm liking it too, but we got to send it over to our analyst and our wonderful host to break down all the action you just watched.
So close. My prediction probably made it the furthest, I think, out of everyone. But you know, we're in there. It's a marathon. That's the expression. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And that is a great way to start it for the Canadian boys. But like you mentioned, Velo, Luke, and Trank, of course, taking that W, stealing it away at the very end. War, we were talking in the back room. This match was crazy. It was a crazy no-build match.
It was absolutely incredible. I don't think I've seen, like, I've always seen, like, funny clips where players are all stuck in, like, the reality tree, or they're all stuck in, like, one POI where you're basically able to fly around, and, you know, players just stay alive because of that. But I haven't actually seen a zone that was this stacked in 0 builds up into 4th and 5th zone with so many people. And when we got that drone shot, we saw 7, 8 shield bubbles all in their own little sort of like arrangement, and nobody wanted to even get close to another team because they knew everybody had the same priority on half and half. They wanted to rotate into the next zone, but it's so hard to do so in this game.
Yep. Your prediction was pretty great too.
Oh.
Okay. Well, Applesauce, I believe, is muted right now, but I'll speak for her in that her prediction kind of was also insane. I mean, Moo and Fluger really kind of, you know, were getting things going, carried the momentum throughout, probably like top of the leaderboard of most eliminations for a good part of it. But I mean, unfortunately, when it came down to the last circle, so I think when we see the leaderboard, they'll probably be up there as far as eliminations, but that kind of lends itself to its own sort of points. So I'll let Applesauce take over. I believe she's unmuted now. She can take over and absolutely gush about her prediction.
Yeah, okay, so when Lash came on, it was like, oh, they have 7 eliminations. I like giggled, and he said, oh, I bet Apples is feeling pretty good right now. Yes, I was totally giggling. I was having a great time here in the studio just watching this. Like, they really brought it today. They played exactly how I expected them to, did not get it to the end circle. I mean, it is the first game. We do have a lot of room here to be able to kind of grow and get ready for the next time, for the next game. So I feel like they're going to be able to really refine this, really get to the end circle, because they ended the game with 15 eliminations. They did not come here to play. They came here to play Fortnite, but not to play. They want to win that $3,000 first place, or $6,000. My bad.
$6,000. It's East Coast, base coast, which means we got the big prize pool. So shout outs West. Not really. It's fine. I'm joking. I'm biased. I live on the East Coast. That's why. So Toronto's sort of East. It is East Coast. So that was an incredible game. I think we'll get the updated leaderboard. I believe. Do we have the standings currently? I think we're still just about ready to get it. However, like we mentioned, Bello, Luke, Trank, an incredible performance all the way through. I think one that, I mean, I know I've seen even in past broadcasts I've been in here, kind of Bello was usually pretty competitive, and we can see the standings here. We'll see kind of where everyone is winding up, but incredibly competitive player, really kind of, I think, underappreciated at the moment. But we can see here how they are near the top, and look at that move. Fluger and Tax getting 15 eliminations, netting themselves a 4th place spot. Of course, Grits, Waddle, Ninja Mark getting that 2nd place position as well off of 8 elims, 29 score. Let's go, boys. I'm bringing out the flag. If you win, oh man, it's going to be a pop-off. Aimrad, though, Capadona, and Sap getting the 3rd place as well, and then everything kind of falling into place. Frosty, I think Frosty, we saw like they were caught in a few positions that were very precarious.
Yeah, it's definitely tough when you get contested off spawn to really find yourself a good place in the game. Yeah, you're gonna have Surge, but dropping at the sound up on the north side of the map, it is so difficult to make the rotation all the way down to a south side of the map when there is so much going against you, so many players in the way, especially when you have like mid-map contestations. I actually saw on the battle bus going in that Chrome Crossroads was unconned, and I don't even think anybody really noticed that. They just rotated through that like, oh, there's probably some big team here. We're going to try to stay as far away as we can. We're super, super scared of that. But It was completely uncon the entire game. I do not expect it to be uncon next game. I think a very, very smart team is going to pick up on that, and we can maybe even see 1, 2, 3 teams try to claim that POI for themselves. I'm looking at Ben Cave especially because that's where they tried to contest on the last Collegiate Cup. Didn't work out so well there, but now
it was
seeing
like
it's uncon,
literally frame 1. It was just like, oh, all right, Becky's dead. All right.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, but seeing that it's uncon, we can definitely see a lot of switch ups. But more switch ups I'm looking to see. I think that I really want to see a little bit of refinement from Moo, Fluger, and Tax's strategy off spawn. I want to see how many options they're giving themselves, primarily because on the second zone, they had 7 eliminations. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable when other teams start figuring out exactly what you're doing. If they just key the same team over and over and over again, it's going to be very hard for them to actually get those consistent keys going, because teams are going to start realizing, teams are going to start switching up their drop spot, and they're going to be left as one of the most feared teams in the lobby, which is good for placement, but in that game, they only got 11 placement points. So I'm looking to see how they can improve on their placement score while keeping those eliminations up.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like we could see like 3 different types of teams here. We have those that play kind of passive and kind of pop up towards the end and they get that placement score. Like AimRed's team, some really go aggressive, like Flugers. They were able to get 15 eliminations, but not too much placement score. But there's like a lot there that were able to get into the middle spot there. They were really able to balance the 2 types of play styles. And I think we're going to see that a whole lot more, just like how War said, once the night goes on, people get more comfortable with their drop spots. There's not too much contention until maybe the last game when people are like, all right, I need to get rid of these people. I'm so tired of seeing them on my screen. But I feel like we're going to see a lot more refinement towards those last games and even mid-game towards all these players, and we're going to see a leaderboard start to stack up.
Well, we are going to see that leaderboard really start to stack up as we get ready for our second game here. So Lash, Panda, please take it away.
Well, Seb, we'll take it away because game number 2 is almost underway. And I got to say this, Lash, my man. We were talking a little off screen. I'm not going to lie. Some of these teams were anxiously making it into those final moments to the point where he saw 50 players drop down to 5 players in less than 2 minutes, Lash.
Insane. It I mentioned it just then that normally, you think you go into a regular standard Battle Royale. Oh, you think, nah, that's gonna be going till 9th zone. Nah, this is quick, hot fire action and quick indeed as we get right into the battle bus of game number 2. And just on the right half of your screen, just on the bottom, it's gonna be Velo, Luke D, and Trank, our first place team at the moment.
Yeah, first place for now, but will they be able to maintain it? That's the question we're going to get to see answered as this game and many more continue to get played out.
Big start. This is what it's all about. Just based off of where you drop in Flutter Barn. Now, last game, we saw this team getting contested by Colin, Nostalgia, and Rad. They're no longer here because, honestly, I think Velo, Luke, and Trank alphaed it up. They said, all right, we're winning this game, and we're winning it convincingly, and starting that off spawn, absolutely impeccable. And that's going to be the story for many teams. Like we saw last game, we saw Ben, Parsec, and Outrage take a fight early last game. Do they do the same thing? We've seen Chonker Speedway get very active early. So it's all about these off-spawn battles.
You know, that old song of Come Down to the Butter Barn is quite literally the opposite now. It's avoid the Flutter Barn, because if you want trouble, that's where you're going to find it there for these teams. But now we switch over here to one of my favorite POIs on the map this season. It is Chrome Crossroads. Now, though, looking at Crims, Shades, and Tender, it does look like they have one other team here close by with them. So they're going to have to play this a little bit more patiently than they probably would like. And they're looking to probably try to get some of this loot out before this other team decides to figure things out. But no, as I say that, Tender immediately going up to the balloon and now looking down. Smart play on his part. He's going to be able to gather not only intel for his teammates, but some crucial tags to start a fight if necessary.
Just gotta be careful not to fall off. Getting a little bit too close to the edge there, you know. Personally, I'm a little bit height scarce, so I don't know. Grandpa Tender is playing with my feels right now as his team's down below, as this is going to be an interesting battle between the Chrome Crossroads, as every single one of these teams are going to be battling up against whether or not you can get the best positioning here, because here in Chrome Crossroads, it's all about getting the right peaks, the right angles, especially around the buildings, as even in this fight at Rave Cave, it's the same exact story.
It is the story, but one thing I got to talk about, man, Ben K gone down yet again. This man is going down almost quicker than War going down to me in a 1v1. So this is like not the good looks here that we were expecting from Ben K, but I know this man. Sometimes he struggles a little bit off spawn, but he comes back in the later rounds of the game. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. But no, switching back to something playing out, it is that Chrome Crossroad fight that we just saw a moment ago, now playing out in the favor of the other team. This team, Lucid, Soup, they're going to be able to get the knock on the Crims, and now Shade's just trying to keep them back as Crims just crawls away.
This is an important battle, especially with that second place team. This is the team that we saw come away in second place, not only on the leaderboards, but also on the placement in game number 1. So they have a lot to battle for, especially coming up against a team of Shay, Tender, and Crims. Crims being a very well-known player back in the OG days of Fortnite competitive, now competing here in Zero Build in the collegiate space and fighting for what seems to be a very good reputation, looking to hold that here. However, when you're fighting against the best of the best in the lobby, hey, you got to be ready for it.
You have to be ready indeed, and that's what's going to happen here. Fortunately, it does look like they'll get Crims back into this game, but any of these players hear that indicator, hear that van go off, and realize that a player is close by getting rezzed, that could be another tough time moving forward for them. Remember, statistically, we've seen time and time again, teams that have to reboot a player within the game, more often than not, do worse in the game. And actually, until I believe the beginning of this year, no team in a major competition like an FNCS had won a game after getting a reboot. Just think about that for a second.
I'm thinking,
Crazy
and
stat.
I do definitely agree with that, right? I have a golden rule of thumb to never reboot after third zone, because that's when you have to worry about loot, rotation, and other teams that could possibly be in your surroundings, because we all know those reboots are a little bit louder than you would like to be, and therefore when you are hitting that reboot, it is very alarming, not only for your team, and then you have to kind of scrape up whatever you can gather, and therefore not putting you, which could be good loot, but it doesn't matter when you put the rest of your team in that bad position as well.
You're absolutely right. You have to make sure that you are mindful of everything going on and the position that you're going to put your team in, because this is a team game mode, folks. This is not solos. This is trios. So every move you make also affects the people around you. So make sure you keep that in mind as this continues on. But YH, Renegade, Ranster, and Janman finding a little bit of success here early on. They have a great loadout. This is exactly what you want at this point in the game. You don't want to have to rotate too far, which unfortunately they may have to if they don't start moving here soon. And otherwise, looking pretty solid. I do like Y-Edge's loadout here in particular. I mean, my favorite weapon of the season, that legendary prime shotgun. That boy's a heavy hitter.
Listen, I know you love it only because I've seen you rocking this loadout so many times throughout your personal tournament experiences. I know you got that fragger bones in you. Panda is just an elim master, right? If anybody's looking for it, he's just getting elims all the time.
Hey, listen, you tell me where to show up and I'm gonna be there. Not only am I gonna be there, I'm gonna get them eliminations. That's my job, right? Any team I've played on, man, don't get me wrong, I got some Fortnite knowledge, but I'm not the IGL.
All right. You know, hey, everyone's got their own skills. You know, me personally, I'm the IGL of the team. All right, I've led some duos, some trios up in the business. And speaking of trios up in the business, you got Books, you got Alpha, you got Yelsey. Now that's the team that did decent, right, in the qualifiers. However, didn't perform to what seemed to be could be their possibility, because they had a little bit of movements hindrance, right, in their qualification standards. They've had some games where they had win potential, but ended up falling in those rotation kind of moments. And I think something similar could happen if they don't learn to adapt here. You see Boogs' inventory, you don't see any rotation, and it makes me a little bit scared. And if they can get past that, what seemed to be a barrier, I believe this could be a top 5 team we're talking about.
It could be. It could be indeed. So I'm curious how it's going to continue to play out. But looking at Boogs' inventory, looking at the location that they're in, could be a slower start this game versus last game. Now, though, we flip over to Crumbler, who unfortunately has gone down and is up to his teammates in God Kicker and Soli to try and make something happen. Now, honestly, their finish from the last game, if I remember correctly, they're in the top 15. Yes, they were in 11th place going into this game. We're just outside the top 10 going into this game. So this start, while it is a little bit unnerving, doesn't mean that they're going to fall too far on the leaderboard if they end up going down.
And we saw them in those final moments of the end game as well. Like you mentioned there, they were also one of those teams that had fought up against Fluger, Moo & Co. in that battle as well. So then being able to get in a good position to where maybe you're not fighting against one of those, what seem to be normally our top 3 teams throughout the Collegiate Cups, will be their main key to part. But hey, Panda, we got your team on the screen. Ben, you know, he's making a bit of a rebound. They got 3 elims.
All right, listen, Ben, I need you to clean this up here, buddy. You can't keep going down, man. I don't understand what's happening, but you got to stop it, and you got to stop it sooner rather than later, because Outrage and Parzik can only carry you so much.
It can indeed, eh? That's the core part of a trio. Now, normally, I mean, people enter the conversation, they're like, oh, you can have 2 carries in the trio and then just have one that's maybe not the greatest. I mean, that's been a conversation throughout the Fortnite competitive community and why they like trios maybe a little bit more, so that way they can rise no matter the top. I mean, that's why we see these moments where, hey, you got that big riser team and they try and create the literal god squad no matter what. So honestly, I think Ben K will be able to make a rebound as we swap on over to Ranster, J-Man, YY Edge. Once again, still up here in the same exact position relatively that they were in only 2 minutes ago when we stopped by them.
Yeah, and again, like we talked about it, this is a legitimate strategy here for Ranster, Edge, and Janman. Playing the Storm for at least a little bit has its let's say, value, right? Because realistically, you're not pushing into another team. You're not fighting in a pretty like disadvantageous position. No, you're hanging out in Storm. You have the heals to maintain that. And if there is a team close by, ideally you're hitting that balloon and avoiding it, because no one can afford a Storm fight.
You cannot afford a Storm fight, and that's for sure. And let's be honest, normally you're not carrying that amount of heals to be able to do so. They are quite literally specifically relying on the vaults to be able to get their med mist, to be able to get their med kits, maybe an extra couple chug splashes to be able to maintain your heals. But realistically, you're not spending that much time in zone, especially here in zero build, where you have to get that positioning ASAP. No matter the rotate, no matter the zone, you gotta be there to see there. And Panda, I do want to point out here, you see that bottom left mini map marker around that Chromnado?
Mm-hmm. Look at that, man. Here's another strategy that we have seen unfold here in Chapter 3, Season 4. Hang out in the tornado, which is what's happening right now. Every time we see the tornado in zone, typically you'll see some teams up at the top of it. Remember, when you're up there, it's a little bit more difficult to connect shots with you. It's also more difficult to get involved in a fight, right? Obviously, if you're out of the game, if you're out of the way, no one's going to be focusing you. So smart play on their part, but eventually they're going to have to move out.
Definitely gonna have to eventually, shift it out, fine, hit the rotates, get the positioning, get on top of the mountaintops. And Amlock, Belzy, and Fades are definitely playing with the cars. They're playing a little bit more with their food here. Hopefully they need to get to grubbing at least shortly. Ooh. But no, the food splatters all over their face, and now they gotta clean it up. As Bobby, Chris, and Neverfire like, nah, we got you. We are that big beast all around that you can't even eat. We are those guys. 6 elims already on the board. They are fragging out.
Listen, we talked about how Chris potentially wasn't in this in September. Like, off the top of my head, I don't think he was here. I think he was actually at Rivals as well. But this team is another team that is absolutely dominant when it comes to zero builds, and we're seeing it take place right now. 6 eliminations at the second zone. Second zone, folks, is not easy. It is near impossible to find that much success early on, especially against talented players like this. So it's going to be tough for a lot of these other players to shift against this momentum, because when you get going like that team has got going, it's going to be tough to slow them down.
It's like trying to forcefully push yourself against, I hate to reference it, a tornado, right? It's like trying to push up against the wind, but you're still just not at all powerful enough to go against it. However, there are some trucks, some big beasts, some tornado hunters out here that are ready to forcefully push the fight. And now the Tragics accept up here on top of the balloon. Kings of positioning here, as they already have 6 elims as well. The same amount that we had seen before across the other side of the island. And now they're bringing it back, and we're taking a look at all of our top tier teams as they are ready to put up a battle. They're like, game 1 was a fluke. Now it's time to rock.
Yeah, listen, it's time to rock and roll, because now here it is, the final moment. 60 players remain in this game, but it was literally the last game that we watched in zone 4 and 5 where we had 50 players. So this next moment is going to be a little bit slower. Now the only game plan for any of the players that remain is to survive. They need to stay alive a little bit longer, make sure they maintain the resources they have in their inventory, like Fear here with the bunkers and the shield bubbles, and play to the end game. Once you get into those final moments and you can use those beautiful assets in that inventory, that's when you're going to find success. That's when you're going to put points on the board, and ultimately that's when you're going to walk away with some eliminations. So for Fear, Scav, and Skullsy, their only goal, survive.
Survive is the key. I mean, that is literally the #1 rule of life, all right? Survive. Do not go down in the elimination feed, because, well, you go down, you ain't gaining any elims, you ain't getting any placements, and everybody else behind you and ahead of you, granted, being that they're still alive, will get ahead on that leaderboard, and especially in these moments. Third zone, this is the crucial time for these teams to put up what they need to have and put them down once again. And in these moments where the rotations are going to be key, you have teams like Kai, Chris, we saw Ben K out there in the sky wide and high, and then you even see teams like Jathan and Ben getting active in the elimination feed, and no matter the play styles, they're getting it done.
They're getting it done indeed. So many players still up in this, and a lot of players that found themselves outside of the top 10 still in it, still looking to put some points up on the board. Now though, look, Tuso, Chris, you guys, you need to get moving. You cannot afford to spend too much. Wait, as I say that, immediately going for the med display to play out the storm. Interesting decision. Not one that I necessarily would agree with, but still their choice in the matter, and they're going to survive for just a little bit longer.
Now the choice of essentially gapping your rotate there, right? They let a little bit of time pass for the zone to go ahead, and honestly there it was the best decision they could make, because there was another team flying ahead of them, so they knew they were there, let them get ahead, therefore they could follow the rotation, and it worked well for them. And teams still are now pushing up a different fight. They're ready to pick up those elims. They're taking more of the base, the foundation. They want to be the most firm team in the zone right now, and K-Burbs and Pen Jath are doing the same thing. Meanwhile, Accept and Co out in the distance are also doing the same exact thing.
No, I'm not surprised here. I'm not surprised at all. Inpin walking away with some elims. Jath, K-Burbs also walking away with eliminations. They're aggressive, but their aggression is always calculated. You don't see them just jumping into bubbles, going for fights. No, you see them playing their bunkers, playing the edges zone, making sure that they're getting eliminations that are fair to them, but also don't put them in much harm, right? That's the big thing. They're not throwing up a bunch of risk, jumping into bubbles, jumping into people's faces. No, they're doing a great job of playing smart, playing calculated, and ultimately getting some really nice eliminations here in the mid game.
And I do believe that comes down to practice, right? For those of y'all that may be wondering, all right, why are these players our top competitors? Why are they so good? Well, it's because they've not only been in the scene for a while, but they put in the practice throughout tournaments and tournaments and tournaments, throughout the past 2 months of the Collegiate Cup, throughout all the Zero Build Cash Cups. They make sure they're putting in the practice to be here on game day and putting up points.
Putting up points indeed. So much on the board already. Great start here for them. I mean, look, this is your boys here. Except Tragics and Nounsy doing some just insane, incredible work here to start off game number 2. And it looks like they're not ready to stop. They're going to continue on as they throw a bunker down right there on the edge. And now players looming close by are at a huge risk of falling to Accept.
And something they have to be careful of as well is something that they have faltered in many times before, and that was them overextending, getting too aggressive. You mentioned it in the very first part of the show, where this is something that has plagued this team many times before, and they can't let it plague them now, especially being in the position where they have 9 eliminations and they're not ready to stop.
Yeah, so much still left here for these teams, but wait, Lash. What is happening? Can we just discuss how all these teams now have 5 to 10 eliminations midway through this game?
Fraggers. I mean, they're just the best.
Bro, they're playing against the best of the best. I mean, listen, this is elite fragging, if I do say so myself. Like, you know, listen, I know how to put up an elimination or two, mainly onto war. But for these players, they're just putting in work. What is happening right now?
Listen, hey, they got those good routines going. They're ready. They got their breakfast. They got their grubs. Now they're ready to game. They're ready to take out the rest of the lobby as both teams here going toe-to-toe of Alpha, Boogs, Yelsey, and Co going up against the side of Nevify, Bobby, and Chris. Both teams now, though, have to make a rotation. 40 players alive. This is where we saw the shift happen in game number 1, where teams that were not set up for success did end up falling, and that is exactly what is going to happen for teams like Alpha as they go down in the elimination feed. Now, here come all of the shockwaves, all the launch pads, and all the teams that are set up successfully up on top are going to be the ones that come out on top.
Ones that come out on top. Indeed, it's actually Scolds, Paris, and Brutal still in this game, throwing down some shield bubbles here. I was about to say, I'm curious, are they ditching them, or what are they doing? But no, they're going to keep them in the inventory. Throw one down here real quick, and now looking for some shots. Scold's doing a good job of just maintaining some info around the corner. You have to make sure you are vigilant. With so many players in such a tight area, you have to be careful with where you position both your bubbles, your bunkers, and yourselves, because the last thing you can afford to do is get caught off guard. But that was almost Ben K getting caught off guard. Fortunately, he's still in this game. But for players like K-Burbs, Fear, Inpin, they're out.
Half of our lobby just went down within the last minute of the zone, and that now being one of our top competitors of Jade, K-Burbs, and Npen falling. Renegade Rincer falling into the hands of Crisp, Funboy, Bobby, and Nevify, holding down this positioning over towards the bottom right half of the zone. Being able to get that front side will be their maintaining opposition. Meanwhile, we have Tragics Accept just on the bottom half of your screen, holding down the positioning. And this is going to be the key part. We saw it in game number 1, where the teams that were able to hold the front side of the zone came out successful.
They came out successful, but will that be a different story here in game 2? Because still so much yet to play out. Now Tragics on the edge, also Paris in the sky, just looking to see where his team is at. Actually going for the double pad. Definitely a bit risky, especially considering how far Storm had pulled in. But you know what? Staying in the sky is going to be super important here, and another pad has been placed. Now it's Outrage completely out as XF picks up the full elimination. That means at least one part of Ben K's team might still be in it, and it might be Parzik, but XF here with Tragics looking to stay in this game. It does look like they've lost Nounsy, but they haven't lost hope as the shield bubble comes out and they heal right back up.
First place, though, getting active. That's Velo right there in front of your screens, getting in front of the battle, ready to take out against Xcept, but Xcept fights back, picks up the Elim, and Brutal and Paris and Skulls are looking to write their own story. 43 points, bragging out. They pick up another elimination, and now it's up against toe-to-toe against Xcept and Tragics right ahead. Meanwhile, Chris running over to the right side. Xcept wants to get the shockwave back in, but the shield bubble knocks it back out. Brutal wants to get in, but the shield bubble once again becoming the X factor as Xcept goes up and takes advantage of the fall.
Taking advantage, but will they be able to hold it? The zone is pulling in. It's going to pull away, but it doesn't matter because they finish it off. Xcept, Tragics, Nounsy walking away with one of the most dominant victory royales we've seen in Collegiate Cup history.
19 eliminations, absolutely fragging out to the best of their abilities, and that's why they are so good, so prized, so amazing. They're simply just the best. They're putting it to work, and they're looking to hold on to their title.
Looking to hold on to it, but will they be able to do it? That's the question, because there are so many challengers in this lobby looking to take it away from them. We'll have to find out, but before we do, let's throw it over to some incredible analysts and our host to break down what we saw in Game 2.
An incredible win for Xcept, Tragics, and Nounsy. We knew that at some point they were going to show up, and they clearly have. Of course, last month's winners showing up big with 19. Big old 19 eliminations. Jeez. That is incredible to see, and an incredible start for the boys. Even though they started off a bit slow, War, I mean, they're back into it pretty hard.
I mean, I don't want to give Lash all the credit, but Lash knows what's up. Lash is the big brain. Never doubt this man in his predictions. Never doubt Nounsy, Xcept, Tragics, because that team is absolutely incredible when it comes to executing on games. If they can make it, if they can take every 3v3 in their path, they will. They are so good at just slicing up fights and executing at the right time. You can see it there in the end game. They would always shockwave together. They knew exactly who was throwing down a shield bubble. And when it came down to the final moments of a 20-person moving zone, by the way, with many trios still in the game, they were able to execute to perfection, even against our former first place team of Velo and Co.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should ever doubt Lash. I think this guy has like 5 different gigantic spreadsheets of information on every single player that's ever been in CCA. Like, this guy does his research here. So, I mean, congrats Lash here. I mean, they were, Xcept Tragic and Nounsy were able to get that win because their beginning loot was so great. They had a crazy amount of shield bubbles, launch pads, and shockwave. So they were really able to use those items to their benefit when we got to this really crazy end circle where it was just basically a flat field, where we usually see that a lot in zero build, but they were really able to move around, jump around, and use it all to their advantage.
Yeah, real quick, you see the highlight here of Xcept getting the high ground immediately and taking advantage. What a good way to end things off. However, when it comes to the overall running, our leaders aren't out of it just yet. Velo's team, of course, still making it to that final 4. As far as my boys, I don't think they got much, which is unfortunate, and I'm going to have to take that L, but it is a marathon, not a sprint once again, but Xcept being firmly into it. I think we have our standings just close to ready, so we'll get that up for you in just a second. But overall, lots of key highlights here, of course, with Velo's team making it near the end. Still close, pretty high, competing for that top spot. Xcept, of course, just that is such a 19 eliminations. I feel like I needed to reiterate. That is incredible. I think my white balance just changed, so I'm looking all funky right now. So let's see. It's a new camera, guys. I'm trying to get used to it, but it was an incredible performance through and through. I think, I don't know, War, when it comes to the teams that we're expecting, when it comes to Jaith right now, we're not seeing them compete, I think, near the top as we'd like to.
I definitely see that at the moment. And the one thing I got to say to that is they definitely can be a back half team. They definitely have the potential to pop off once all the chaos around them gets sorted out and they are able to figure out exactly where people are landing and exactly when to key. I think they're going to really turn it on. You could see them push out into Cammy Split and clean up 3 eliminations on Crumbler and co. Definitely not a sleeper team in the competition. Definitely a team that has a lot of loot to their disposal. But they walked in and they fully wiped that team. I think it's just about, do they have the positioning to put themselves into a good spot to win this game?
Yes, and with that, our standings are good to go. Let's take a look at where things are. Of course, that 25 limbs from Nounsy Accept and Tragic, 19, which means they got math. 19, that means they got 6 limbs the first time around, but it was enough to bounce them straight to the top. Velo, Luke D, and Trank, of course, being at the second spot. In terms of Paris, Brutal, and Scold, this was a fantastic showing from them as well. A really good way to kind of kick things off for them. At the moment, they will be put in that 4th spot. And then with Aimred, Sap, and Capadona still sitting there in the 5th spot, just prowling, waiting for their chance. My boys, my prediction, Grits, Twaddle, and Ninja Merc will be down to 8th. And I'm sort of looking where Jaith is, and I can't find him. Am I actually just losing it right now? Is he not in the top 12 right now?
He's not in the top 12
so.
right now.
Oh, that's a bit hard, boys. Not gonna lie. So I think that is an incredible showing. Anyone that you're pointing to here as possibly like really kind of running away with things?
I think
obviously we're only in the second game, which is a big factor, but you know what I mean.
I think we all gonna talk about Nounsy Accept Tragics with 19 eliminations. Everybody's gonna like see that on paper, but nobody's gonna talk about Nevify, Bobby, and Crisp, who also got 19 eliminations in 3rd place. They played almost identical games, going super aggressive off spawn, and both these teams it just came down to who was better positioned in the end game, who had more utility at the end. But Nevify, Crisp, Bobby are also dropping uncontested. They also have fairly good POI to drop at, so I could see that going the complete opposite direction. But in terms of consistency, we gotta talk about, I think, 2 teams. Obviously, Trank, Luke, Velo. They've been up there every single game. They've been averaging an amazing 3rd place. That's gonna be a 1st and a 5th. But with that, they only have 9 eliminations, so that's why some of the teams above them, or I guess the one team above them, is currently in 1st place. The other team I want to shout out is actually going to be Ben K's team. Even though Panda likes to roast Ben K a little bit, I think that Ben K is actually executing these games so well, because despite fighting off spawn and getting knocked and even eliminated off spawn, it doesn't really matter, because he knows the win condition, he knows where to get these reboots, and he knows exactly at what time they can play back into zone.
So
Yeah.
with that, I think we are ready. Sorry, Applesauce. We're just we're getting right into it. It is
I
game
had things
3.
to say.
Okay, go ahead. We'll get it done real quick. We're doing it live.
Okay. I'll go quick. Frosty and Bello, I feel like we're going to see a lot more for them. I mean, the first game, they had no eliminations left in 29th place, but this last game, they got 4th place with 7 eliminations, and we're going to see a lot more from them in the next 4 games. That's it. Go ahead.
Well, keep an eye on that, as once again, we enter into our 3rd game this evening. We're going to be in the green room, making sure we check out Frosty Mellow and, of course, my boys. So, Caster/Panda, please. Game 3. Take it away.
Here it is, folks. Game 3 is almost underway, and we're almost at the halfway mark of this competition. Now, I want to say something. Look, Flash, prediction king of Collegiate Cups. I'm just calling it now. Obviously, he's got a challenge ahead of himself for the solo competition later today. But for this trios competition, obviously, his pick showing up there, not only getting the win, not only getting a ton of elims, but clearly taking the lead here into 1st place. Do you think they'll be able to hold it, though?
I am a believer, but I can't take all the credit, of course. Nounsy Accept Tragics, they are honestly just the best. I mean, there's a reason why I root for them so much, is because they have it in them every single time to do so well, and they pick it up with uncontested POIs. That's why they have and earn that respect as well. And as we speak, the Battle of Chunker Speedway unfolds pretty quickly there.
It does, man. Look, and this is how fights need to be off spawn. If you want to have success in these games, you cannot dwell too long on these early game fights, or you're gonna end up walking away with a lot less loot. You're gonna use way too many resources, whether it's your bunkers, your shields, or your ammo. You're gonna end up walking away in a way less of an advantageous position than you would if, you know, you were just staying out of the fights or finishing them up quickly. So good play on their part. But now we flip over to the Rave Cave. Rave Cave at times being quad contested here on November's Collegiate Cup. And I'm not surprised. It's kind of one of the best POIs on the map.
It is indeed. I mean, there's a reason why I always drop here, to be honest. Like, I'm dropping in here in my arena games. I'm dropping in here in my zero build games. This is honestly such one of the honestly best spots since, what was it, Chapter 3 Season 2 when it was first introduced? And actually, it was back end of Chapter 3 Season 1 where we had it introduced, which is honestly incredible that it has been such a standalone top tier POI throughout this entire chapter so far, and it hasn't really changed that much.
It hasn't changed, but what has changed here is the playstyle of Outrage, Parsec, and Ben-K. It looks like they're not going to take the fight as quickly as we've seen them take in the past, but when you have somebody like Frosty and Mellow not too far off in the distance, you do definitely have to be a little bit more careful. But no, as I say, Ben-K going up, gliding up, looking to get to the next balloon, potentially going to go for this vault. Now, though, we switch over as Fades, Ballsy, Amok are not too far away. Actually, this is just to the right of where we saw Ben-K just moments ago. So if they had glided this direction, we could have seen a pretty tough fight for both teams unfold.
And it's not out of the question either. I mean, we have seen battles drag out this far before. Now, granted, it does come down to the experience of the players and being able to think into the mind like, all right, we cannot make this much of a risky rotate without really putting up some risky answers, especially in these moments where every single movement you make is so crucial on top of the leaderboards, where we have teams like Ben that are up there at the top. And once you start getting closer into those unmarked territories, no man's land, if you will, where teams will do anything to get some points to their names, you gotta be extra careful.
You definitely do. And players like Fluger, Moo, and Tax, they know this. But that hasn't slowed them down as they find Parsec actually going to be able to catch him off guard. Does end up getting the knock, but what does that say for Outrage and Ben-K? They clearly have to be still up, or at least one of them still has to be in this game. But that's an early start there for Moo, Fluger, and Tax. But one thing I want to mention, you saw the shield bubbles come out. Despite Tax still having a good inventory, they had to use some of those vital resources to pick up that one elimination. Sometimes in these situations, you have to weigh out, is it worth it?
And the main part I'm confused about is that we saw the rotation come out from Ben-K up towards the top of the split where the mansion used to be, up in that area. Now, granted, that is about 200 meters northeast towards of Chrome Junction. And now all three players have been completely split. Ben-K's all of a sudden a solo. He's made his way all the way to the top left mountain to hit a rift. I'm struggling to think about what is the communications going on between this team, because something has got to be off and they need to fix it quick, because this is already in game number 3.
This is tough to watch. Remember, going into this, we finally saw Ben-K and his team break into the top 10. They are actually just in 10th place. But now with this shift in energy, this shift in momentum, it's going to be tough to turn around from it. But no, actually, we're seeing a bit of a similar situation here for Fluger, Moo, and Tax, who, again, remember, one of our top teams. They were in 7th place after game number 2, and it looks like that might be not so hot for them, as they might not be able to maintain this, because it looks like there's a team hunting them. Despite Fluger going down, though, Moo, Tax, they're still in this, barely holding on and just trying to disengage.
They want that disengage so bad that the fact that he had to spray around, turn around, get the tree, the breakable tree, he was like, nah, I am not getting ruined by this at any means. It's taking advantage of lessening the RNG around them so that way they don't get completely knocked out, especially this early in the game where we still have a total of 79 players alive. These games are staying stacked. Therefore, your measure of placement matters even more.
It does. And look, there's so much that is still left to be told here of this tale that is the November Collegiate Cup zero build competition. Like, look, there's still a lot that we haven't seen quite yet. So anything can go. I mean, look at Nounzy, X7, and Tragic, for example. They had an incredible game too, but they're only 2 points ahead of second place, which is not a lot of a difference. So if they're not consistent, they can end up falling. Same thing we're seeing from Move, Fluger, Tax, from Outrage, Ben K, and Parzix. These teams who have found success, have found their way into the top 10. Unfortunately, here in game 3, not doing as well. So really comes down to two things. How consistent can you be in the second half? And what other teams are looking to take your spot?
Speaking of consistency, this battle still up ahead is a very interesting battle that could unfold over there towards Chonkers, as our two most consistent teams are very edge and nearing a battle as well. Meanwhile, we got battles happening even more towards the reality tree, as two knocks have already happened. One full elim completely down, and Cheek is just out in the midst of nowhere trying to dodge out all of the grenades.
Hey, listen, you can duck, dive, and dodge as much as you want, but when those grenades are landed close to you, it's not gonna matter. But unfortunately, it wasn't the grenades that took him out. It was actually those shots there, beautifully executed from Blue. So Blue going to be able to pick that up. Wait, did Blue go down simultaneously with getting that elimination?
I believe so.
Wait, no. Okay, whew. Blue is still in this game. We see him at the top of the tree here. Despite a little confusion there on the board, Blue is still in it and is going to be able to heal up quite quickly there for him and his teammate. Now, though, looking at the leaderboard, I'm kind of curious, right? We don't see them, this team in particular, in the top 12. But with a great start like we're seeing for them here in game 3, anything goes. Anything can change here. And that's what they're going to be looking for here as game 3 continues to commence.
And I do want to say there, hey, you never know. We may have miscalculated whether or not one of those players would have gone down, but hey, especially on top of that reality tree, fall damage is something that definitely has happened. I mean, I'm definitely someone that has fallen off that tree multitudes of times, especially with porta bunkers. Hey, you got to be aware of those tires on the edge.
That's why we see teams like Fluger's team from last game break out those tires. That's a legitimate strategy to utilizing the bunkers. Because those tires, to be honest, they do more harm than good sometimes. I'll be real with you. Because all it takes is you overextending off the top of the bunker just a little bit, and immediately you're hitting that tire and flying, especially in locations like the top of Reality Tree, where you can instantly go down to that fall damage. Now, though, you got to focus on Capo, Sap Games, Aim Red. This team, interestingly enough, does look like they have made it into the top 5. 5th place, actually. I'm curious, will they be able to stay consistent? Aim Red, he's definitely one of the most talented players when it comes to both zero build and build Fortnite. The standard BR and the zero build, nothing has stopped him so far in Fortnite. Doesn't matter what game mode you give him, he finds success. But unfortunately, when it comes to Collegiate Cup, he always seems to be a little too aggressive, and I'm hoping that storyline for him changes today.
It has the possibility, right? You mentioned they're in 5th place. They've played a very consistent game, but only averaging 2.5 eliminations throughout the first 2 games, which is interestingly enough, because when we watch teams like J-Tip here on top of your screens that are fragging kings, fragging champions, they're ready to put up a fight no matter the situation, no matter the team. It is an interesting kind of beg and play between the two teams that are both at the top. However, one's playing a bit differently than the other and getting business done another different way.
Well, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Jade doesn't have a choice. They have to start doing something. They have found themselves falling out of that top 12. So, unfortunately, they have to pick up the pace. They cannot afford to slow down at all. But if we know this team, we know them to be one of the strongest second half teams. And that's where we see them pick up a lot of their eliminations, a lot of their points in general. So I'm interested to see how it's going to start, and will it start here in game 3? Because at some point, it is going to have to pick up.
It is indeed, and the elims continue to pick up, as you see Redux picking up an elimination there in the feed. Our team in 6th place right behind Aim Red, Capo, and Sap. There only a 3-point differential as the gap continues to shorten between each of these teams, as Pal is able to pick up another one. However, Fluger picking up another elimination throughout the feed. So that team from 5th, 6th, and 7th, all 3 of them are getting hot into the action when it's the perfect time to get hot here in game number 3. Everyone at the top is looking to maintain a good pacing heading into the second half. So this is the game. If you are going to have your best game, it is now.
And it's clearly happening here as Jaith walks away with a few eliminations there on the board. So many people starting to go down. 64 players remain here in the second zone, which honestly, this number is beginning to dwindle a little bit more than what we saw in game 1 and 2. And that's exactly how zero build tends to play out. As soon as we get to that mid portions of this tournament, whether it's game 3, game 4, even sometimes game 5, we see players tend to go down a little bit quicker. But once you get into game 6, everybody is holding on for dear life. They're just trying to survive, and it'll be interesting to see who will make it into game 6 and who ultimately in game 6 will find success, because realistically, if you're not on it and you're not warmed up by that point, unfortunately you're not going to be in the top 12 leaderboard.
It is an unfortunate situation where you have to be ready no matter the circumstance here, as we take a look over towards just to the north of the Greasy Grove, as we have Snowy, Godkickster, and Crumbler looking to take down a team that was once in the top of the leaderboard standpoint after game number 1. However, after an unfortunate fall early in game number 2, it has led them up to the point where you get caught up in these situations where you move off your gameplay, and therefore you start running into the plans of other teams' gameplay, because especially when they got that drop map down, they're like, all right, this is our rotation, we're sticking to it. And hey, you get in the middle of the path, it's like trying to get in the middle of a train. You ain't got no chance.
No, you don't have a chance. It's going to be tough here. A lot of these teams need to play this a little bit more cautiously. They have to make sure they're getting points where they can, but staying alive. Because staying alive is way more important in this competition than when it comes down to just a few eliminations here on the board. So for players like Snowy, like Godkicker, like Crumbler, they're in the top 10 right now. They're doing a lot of good things. They're trending upwards, but they're not careful. All it takes is one game to slow that huge shift down.
They're ready to make that shift ASAP, as they have a top 5 team up in the distance of Paris, Brutal, and Scolds up there. Shockwave and All About looking to bring up the fights, as this seems to be an interesting storyline developing, trying to find that balance between, all right, how long are we going to go without fighting a team? Because it seems to be, for a lot of our teams within the top 10, they're deciding to be like, all right, we're going to stay as passive as we can up until that 4th zone. Then we're going to start to get active. And then for teams like Nowzy, Except Tragics, which makes sense considering their normal play style throughout the opens, they're like, all right, we're going to fight our elims early and then close the book in the end game.
Yeah, and that might be the only option that they have. But looking at this, it looks like Jaith losing his teammate here does end up getting him back in the game. But for how long? That's really kind of what I'm going to be focusing on here when it comes to this team. Because, again, like we talked about just moments ago, in just another game, realistically, if your teammate goes down and you have to reboot them, it puts you that much further behind in your game, because they have to loot up, because they have to do so much more just to get back involved in the game. So it's gonna be tough for them to turn it around. But Jaith says, you know what? No, Panda, I don't like what you're saying. I'm just gonna go ahead and get another elimination as he takes out Grits, which Grits is, I believe, that's Seb's pick, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, look at that. Picking up Grits and Twaddle and Merc by himself.
My.
What is happening? Jaith, I know we told you, we said you were the go to zero build. Listen, you didn't have to go out that hard, right?
Listen, I was just about to say, yo, it's 3rd zone, about to turn into 4th, and Jaith and NPen are like, nah, you know what? We don't follow by your rules here, Lash. We play by our rules. This is the NPen, Jaith, and K-Burbs show. We make our own rulebook here in these games to where we can frag out, pick up any elims we want. We can reboot whenever we want. We can put up the fight that is left to a brew. And the Skullsy, Fear, and Scab, they get welcomed to their own rules. They said, nah, get out of here.
Yeah, I definitely heard a get good kid in that moment. I don't know if it came through their headset or what, but usually we don't typically hear that through spec clients, so great on them. They must have been loud enough for us to hear it at home. But no, Fluger, Moo, and Tax, another team still in this, still involved, and surprisingly still alive. Remember, last time we tuned in with this team, they were struggling. Lost a teammate, They found themselves using almost all of their precious resources to stay alive. Yet we tune in again, and it seems like they have almost everything figured out.
They have it all game plan, right? That's the key for this team, especially if you're as good as Fluger, Moo, and Tax. You got to make sure you're ready. As they were taking some shots at the bush, there was a player in there. However, hey, dodge and duck and weave, and no matter the game, hey, they're ready to cook the book no matter where it be. As Chris has just found himself between a rock and a hard place, as you have Fluger and Co above, except now to Tragics now pushes the fight, as they're like, this is our lobby to dominate.
This is, but so many people in this lobby have that mentality, right? We see Except Nowsy Tragics, they're thinking the same thing. We see AimRed in the elimination feed picking up eliminations, meaning that he's got that same mindset, right? Everybody in this game feels like, you know what? This is my lobby to take. But unfortunately, there can only be one winner, which is going to be interesting because the aggression is on. Except connecting shots there in the distance, already getting an elimination there just moments ago, and not stopping anytime soon. Actually, wait, did he get the full elimination, or was just that a knock?
I believe it was the full elimination that he was able to grasp there.
Good, because listen, you and I both know you get knocked sometimes and then they slip away. So fortunate for them, they are going to walk away with the full elimination, but they need to keep that pressure going. They cannot slow down anytime soon. They do, however, find themselves in a pretty decent spot, if I do say so myself.
Definitely a decent spot indeed. They've taken the position up on top of the board of the hill. However, like we mentioned, they have to be worried against essentially the alpha up position, hill to hill, side to side, as we have Moo right down below as Lucid finds him, sees him, is like, get out of here. No creeping around. Get me that Elim. Get me up into the top 10 here, as it was actually Tragics that was able to pick up on that ultimate elimination. Lucid was only a little bit of an assistance, and now he's caught up in the open, left out from one good position, has now been flipped onto the script on top of his head and ends up going down out of the skies. So what once was feeling good, we're picking up Elims, we're picking up placements, give us that top 10, has now fallen into the hands of somebody that wants that placement even more.
We talked about it literally at the beginning of this game. We said Jate, NPen, K-Burbs, they have to have a high elimination game. They have to make it into the final moments, and ideally, they have to win it. So far, they're trending that way. They have over 10 eliminations so far in the game. It does look like they've climbed into the top 10 as of now, but can they win it? That will be the deciding factor of whether or not they climb high enough to really challenge that top spot, or if they go into the second half a little bit behind.
And everyone up here at the top spot of the hill is all within the top 10 of the leaderboards as well. So every single one of these teams are fighting against each other quite literally for that leaderboard placement spot. And like we had mentioned earlier, this is the deciding factor game that can literally determine your entire tournament. Utmost confidence still up ahead, and Jade, K-Burbs, and Pen are significantly looking the best right now, having 12 eliminations already on the board. They've ranked up to 6th place. Now it's all about hitting this rotation as clean as possible.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be real with you. This game, while it is playing out in front of, it's hard to tell who's going to walk away on top. You have Redux, Milks, Shiesty, an incredible team here who have everything they need to win except the zone. You see their position, while it's great, it's on the high ground. Unfortunately, they're going to have to start moving. And with only one porta bunker left there, or it looks like for both Redux and PAL, they're going to have to make something special happen, because as you see coming out now, these shield bubbles are going to be the win factor when it comes to the final moments in a zero build game.
And it consistently is able to get them ahead. However, them being on the edge zone gives them that advantage to be the back end team to hit those rotates. Therefore, while everyone decides to hit the rotate with those shockwaves, they're going to be completely null and void to the teams above their head as they continue to rotate on. But the team that we had in front of our faces hitting the front end of the zone is now holding it down even more, because Jade, K-Burbs, and NPen decided to go up towards the shockwaves. Now they're going to be struggling to here. Get the revive down with the shield bubble down below, while everybody else goes up on top, and Except is now knocked to the hands of the most consistent team so far, Trank, Bello, and Luke.
This is insane. The way this is playing out here for Trank, Luke, and Bello, they're continuing to show us that they deserve that top spot. Taking out what was our #1 team potentially completely out of this game and would be to the hands of Velo, Luke, and Trank. So it'll be interesting to see how it continues to play out. But no, now Trank, caster cursed yet again, as he is now the solo player left to hold on for his team. He does Chug Splash here. That's going to give him some additional movement, but will it be enough? Because there are only 3 teams remaining, and he is left as a solo.
Jace, K-Burbs, and Penn bring it on home, though. They said, nah, Bush game, talk about it all. Give me that Victor Royale. Total of 17 elims, and they brought up a grand fight there to pick up the Victor Royale. They said, all right, you want to rotate in the backside, except Nounsy Tragics, get out of here. You want to rotate towards River, get out of here. This is our game to win.
17 eliminations. Like, look, a win is obviously an incredible feat, right? But 17 eliminations with that win? What are we watching? But like I said, literally at the beginning of this game, that was the exact game they needed. They had to have a huge comeback game. Sure enough, they did it. But looks like that's going to be it for us, because we're going to take a quick break before we start into the second half. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with you guys in just a moment.
and yes, I'm grooving.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Collegiate Cup Zero Build Final. We are just about ready to get underway with the fourth game this evening. I'm joined by what was our casters. We have, of course, Lash and Panda. How you guys feeling?
Hey, feeling good. Feeling really good. I'm going to be honest with you. That first half of games was exactly what we expected. A lot of action, a lot of great plays. Unfortunately, a big comeback game there in game 3 for Jade.
Big comeback game indeed. However, I have a little inkling here between now and the Except Tragics. You know, I think it's a battle between our predictions here, Panda.
Yep. Except mine, apparently. But
They started off good though, Seb. Like they were in the top, what was it, top 5 for the first 2 games?
yeah, I mean, like they were doing okay, but I think in terms of just eliminations compared to everyone, like I they might drop out of the top 12. I don't know. We'll take a look at the leaderboard in a second, but it's kind of funny because I remember right before game 3, I was kind of harping on Jaith's team and being like, hey, well, like, you've been dominating so much recently. You won Cash Cup. You won the previous qualifier. Where are you at? And then they just go ahead and just dunk on everyone. So that's been kind of fun to see. Despite that, though, I mean, like, I think it's safe to say that all of the teams that we thought were going to be near the top are now at the top, and it is quite nice. So, Panda, I think going to you, I mean, it's pretty much, I'm not going to say it's fully down, but I think a lot of eyes are on Xep's team, Jaith's team. Where do you see it possibly going in this game 4?
It's going to be tough. So, again, like we talked about during that game, Jaith, notoriously, no matter who he plays with, is a second half player. I think what it is he takes the first few games to get an understanding of what everybody else is doing in the end game and also off spawn. And he takes advantage of that knowledge and then puts it to the test there in the second half. And that's what we saw there in game 3. That was not even the second half quite yet. And he came back with 17 eliminations to win the game. So I believe we're going to see another dominant performance, probably another win, if I had to call it here, from Jaith's team. But if you're Nounsy, Xep, and Tragics, you have to maintain it because it looks like they might be just ahead of them.
And Lash, my turtleneck brother, when it comes, by the way, only one sword turtleneck, along with applesauce. We're not on it together, but still. Let's take a look at standings, and I want to give you a quick question about Xep's team because they are very much still in contention. I mean, sure, I might be sleeping on Bello. Oh, Trank was absolutely god tier with his shockwave by the end. That was an incredible play. And this very much feels like a kind of top 3 between those 3, though I am also sleeping on Crisp and Bobby and stuff. So out of those 4, I mean, do you have a particular favorite that you really want to see? I know you have your prediction, but there is a lot of different ways that this leaderboard is going.
And I do want to point out, like you mentioned there, Trank, Luke D, and Velo, they are without a doubt our best game by far.
Yep.
I mean, their average placement is 3. Incredible.
Yep. So let's head back on over to our casters for this evening. It's going to be War and Applesauce, switching things around. Please take it away.
And welcome, everybody. We aren't even going to show our faces. We know that you're here for the action. We're going straight into the game. We got Jaith, we got Bobby, we got so many top teams out here competing. But first, I got to ask, Apples, what do you think of the first 3 games so far?
Oh, the first 3 games, I feel like we saw so much happening, but like also not too much happening. But at the end, I think you told me that the top 7 that were top 7 last game are the top 7 in the standings so far. So we're starting to like kind of organize where everyone's at right now. And I think it'll take an underdog to kind of pop off if we want to see any movement there. What about you?
I definitely now have 7 teams I'm focusing on. Obviously, I mean, we focus on all the teams. Sigma getting some big shots onto the high ground. I mean, not really the biggest of shots, only hitting one of those tags. That's what you get when you're using a gun that's more of a close range gun at long range. However, definitely looking to go aggressive. They've been fighting over this POI for the last 3 games, and they're looking to put their stamp on it. They've won one of the games, but still looking to get this game under wraps in the bag. Looks like Sigma's getting pushed from multiple angles, but proving the SMG can work at close range. Finds one, takes down Rad. Only one person's left. That's going to be Cullen Mills as a solo, and now manages to get a knock. For Ziara just looking to get back over, but it looks like Baz was able to clean it up all by himself.
Caesar is able to just kind of walk away. Well, Chonkers is definitely a splittable POI. I feel like at this point, it's the 4th game. All these players are like, all right, let's just get it going. We need to be able to get everything that we need here so we're able to utilize all our items in the end game really well. So they don't want to share this. They're trying to get Chonkers for themselves, and it looks like it really worked out well for them. And that's 3 eliminations on their board already for them right now.
Now we flip over to the consistency warriors from the qualifiers. We got Sebo, we got Jacozy, and we got Hamoud. They struggled a lot in the first game, solely because there was a lot of pressure on this team dropping at interesting spot on the map. I believe it was on the western north side, and in that game, Moo and Co actually looked to key them. So they've managed to switch up their drop, and they've found some success with it. But only 1 elimination through the 3 games isn't really what you'd like to see throughout the finals level competition. But Kai seems to be getting eliminations of their own. They've been dropping to Aliens throughout the entire day, and they've been fairly uncontested up until now, apparently, where Aka and Korizi decided to drop in on this team, but definitely not a good decision, because when you sort of refine a drop spot, when you know exactly how to fight off spawn against it, it is so hard to recontest as a different team.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like they were able to get that at least 2 eliminations. There could be one other player out there that just wasn't taken by them, but we'll come and look at them later, see if they're able to keep that drop spot, or they're going to have to start moving pretty soon for the Storm. I mean, Code Cribs, Tender, and Shades here on a really great high-level spot near the Shimmering Shrines. And I mean, this is honestly such an OP spot to sit that I've been seeing in the last couple games. That you get the movement, you have the visibility to be able to see all these different players moving through if you have a long-range weapon, and you also can just hang out. It's kind of a break. No one really expects you to be sitting here, and no one could really visibly see you out looking up there. So this is honestly such an OP spot to be sitting here.
It's also not that beneficial if you're on the low ground to actually look to focus the high ground teams, just because they have so much of a stronger angle onto you. Even if it's a solo on high ground, a trio can not really get that elimination unless they want to go up and fight for that positioning. But speaking of positioning, Luke D, Trank, Velo, the team that's not doing it by eliminations, they're doing it by placement, they're doing it by consistency, and they're doing it with their brains. But we'll have to see if they can make it out of this very tricky situation. They're pinned basically on both sides by 2 different teams. Rifts seem to be the only way out. However, for them, I don't know if you want to take these rifts. There is literally 6 eyes looking at you once you pop the rift. It's a risk that they have to decide, and they have nothing else to do but to go for this, right?
I mean, I think right At one point, I was thinking that they could just be camping there, making sure that no one else could go in there. But it looks like Velo has decided to take the leap in for his team and trying to move on to the other side of Synapse, getting shot down, all the way knocked down here. So Trank and Luke are going to have to go through and grab him. But there is a volcano here that they're going to be able to use for movability to go back and get their buddy, but there are still shots on them. So this is definitely a very tricky situation. You can see on the lower mini map, both teams are coming at them right now. So this is not good for them. It looks like the one team on the lower left may has been seeing that there is another team coming at them. So they could just be doubling back, making sure that they can see what's happening, see who's going to win, and see what loot that they can take from them just at a comfortable distance. But Luke right now is just going to be sitting comfortably in the middle of the tornado until they can reassess the situation that they're in right now.
We just see Trank's name in the elimination feed, and we all know what that means. Luke left with a non-optimal loadout, no mobility, no rotation, no utility either, and now just stuck in a tornado. The zone does pull that way, but to get placement, you need to survive so long within this game. I'm wondering if the team that's been the most consistent on the day will be able to stay that way after game 4. But Elite NPen, the most inconsistent team on the day, I would say. They've had a 17 elimination win. They've also gone down fairly early up until the game in, I think, about 25th overall. So I definitely want to see how this team is switching up their game plan. And it looks like it's just those quick eliminations off spawn to give that aggression, and then they go back, they get a little bit more lax, they play for more positional advantages in the game because the zone's pulling all the way south. There's going to be a lot of teams rotating into their home of Tilted Towers, so if I were them, I'd get moving very, very soon.
Yeah, definitely. I think we saw a couple other teams in the previous games kind of going in and camping in the blimps, which gives you a great bird eye view. And it looks like they could be rotating that way right now into Tilted. I mean, you get the view, you get the visibility of everyone around you, and you also have all that mobility. This chapter in this season has such interesting high spots for all these players, and I feel like we're seeing a lot of different uses here in today from NPen's team. I think we saw Fluger and Moo kind of using high ground a lot, and we saw a lot earlier in this game here as well. Great Jones shot there too.
Yeah, but from what I'm seeing from one of our top teams, the winner of game 2, except now he gone. It's just up to Tragics. He manages to pull zone at least, but I'm not really liking that position. How about you, Apples?
It looks like he's trying to just sit in his Discord call with his teammates, trying to be like, all right, guys, what can I do at this point? Because he could decide to go and try and get the reboot cards, but it's almost third zone, and I think a lot from all the casters that we've heard here today, people don't like to go and reboot after third zone, but there are certain people like you, War, that just really try and get their teammates back in the game more. I mean, like, we played together, and I mean, I think it'll be like 6th or 7th zone. You're like, all right, I'm gonna reboot you real quick so we're able to get this, and I'm like, thanks, War, that's great, but just depends on your game style.
It's just having that commitment. It never works, but you know, I'm in it for the team, right? That's all it's about. Now, definitely. One thing I'm noticing throughout this game, though, is the teams that actually have the zone pull the zone favor, such as Trank, Luke, and Velo, and now the Except Tragics dropping at Flutterbarn and Cloudy Condos respectively, don't have the same success in these games. They get the zone pull, and now there's less teams rotating around them. All the teams are going to be rotating to them, and for teams that have that much pressure on them and they're not used to, I guess, being able to key the teams around them as they rotate, it seems to be a struggle for them. So now is a game where teams like Jafe, NPen, K-Burbs, maybe even Crisp's team can come back on the leaderboard, but another team looking to hop back up on the leaderboard is going to be Snowy. Finds one elimination already, sees CZR right in front of their eyes, but unfortunately CZR is just going to pad off into the distance. They don't want any more of the action, but with 2 teammates down, I don't know how much longer that player can survive.
Well, this is the team, I think, last game or earlier in this game, it was last game, they were kind of camping in the middle. I think it was 4th or 5th zone, just like kind of out in the open. They threw down a bunker and they were not really hiding themselves. They were showing that they were like, hey, here, we're here. They're looking around, trying to figure out exactly where they need to go. Like how you said, you were like, oh, it looks like they're thinking right now, but I don't know if that's the smartest decision right now because they are out in the open and everyone's going to be moving into the center zone. But they were able to get those eliminations and it looks like it's almost working out for them in this game so far. So really goes to show that you're able to get through these games and then kind of refine your gameplay and movement the farther you get into the competition here.
For Bobby, it seems like the movement's gonna be an aggressive push, a bit of tags sent off onto Skullzy's team out in the distance. However, it's not really beneficial for them to stick outside of the zone for that long of time. They need to get in zone. They need to find themselves a dominant position. And then they realize they can wait for these eliminations. Both the teams have the same goal here. They have the same objective. That's to make it to endgame. So it doesn't matter if your eliminations are coming in the second zone, the third zone, or the last zone. Each elimination worth 1 point. And prioritizing placement is also going to be huge at the same time. So a great tactical decision for them to sort of find that amazing positioning within the zone. Rancer also seems to be looking for some type of position. You can see him looking, deciding, does he want to go to Blimp or does he want to go to Tornado? Both seem to be inside of zone, and we've seen Rancer be able to play the Tornado to their advantage very, very often in the game. We saw that definitely in game 2, and I think he's looking to do the same in this game.
I love seeing the Tornado plays here, and Jelly, Assassin, and Edge up on the top on these balloons. I guess they're balloons. I would say that. Like, I mean, this is honestly really an OP spot because Chris and Co can't see this team that's here, but it looks like they're getting shots on them and going to be hitting them down to 150, making them use more of their resources to try and heal up once we get into 4th circle. So honestly, such a great here. But Jaith is able to kind of retaliate. He does see him up here getting a shot for 105. Jaith is just going to be taking that in the storm, though. Going to have to start moving in next to the Tornado, throwing down a shield bubble. Going to get some coverage here. But that means he's going to have to go outside of this bubble to be able to get any more shots on others. But it's going to chill out here. They do have a nice spot next to a launch pad, so they're going to be able to use that once the zone starts moving again. But honestly, War, if you had to look at anyone's inventory here, what would you say is the best things for players to be using during this next storm zone?
Well, one of the things I love as a player are obviously the porta bunkers and the shield bubbles. You can see both in Brutal's inventory. I think those weapons are what's going to get you up, or those utility items are going to be what's going to get you up into that 4th, that 5th zone. But after that, it's got to be the shockwaves. Having that mobility is so crucial. But for Fear, it's going to be having those eliminations. Fear, Scab, Skullzy going straight in to the box of these players. Cleans up 1, cleans up 2. And before I can even finish my sentence, all 3 players are completely eliminated. And I love this from Fear, Scav, and Skullzy. At the start of today, they didn't even know that they were going to be playing today. They didn't even know their drop spot, but now they have came back and really put their stamp on this game.
Oh, definitely. And I feel like they're really just showing, oh, you could just kind of hop on your computer and be ready, even if you weren't like expecting to have a competition here. And I really like it that they're moving here and they're not really taken aback by the players that are kind of taking their shots on here, moving into Chunker Speedway. As we get to the 3rd, almost 4th zone here, it looks like a very, very stacked spot here, but they're keeping their low ground, not going to go up top, so they're able to stick around and not be noticed too much by other players. But speaking of other players, let's look at Ben K right now, playing as a duo with Outrage, just sticking in the Tornado. And I'm just going to repeat myself one more time. High Ground has always made it, as we've seen in particular other competitions that we've had, even in not builds. Like, High Ground is honestly the best because you're able to get that viewership on these other players that you're trying to get eliminations on here.
Speaking of elimination, Shades goes in. I don't think they realize exactly how many players, but it doesn't matter. They hit their shots. They find a couple eliminations, but unfortunately getting taken out by Alpha. This is the 3-4-way fight potentially though. Alpha finds the reboot, or the revive at least, onto one of his teammates. All three seem to be up. That's a great sort of adaptation, but the Shockwaves are going to come in, and now the entire team has been completely disrupted. That's the disadvantage, just sitting inside of Chunker's Speedway. It's the position with natural cover. It's the position that everybody else wants to be in, and now, despite looking so good in the fight before that, Alpha has been left to a solo with basically no utility.
Oh, definitely. This is a very tricky situation. He does have 6 grenades, 2 splashers, the best shotgun in the game, but only a gray AR that he's going to have to be using against these players. But he could be using those grenades a little bit later to kind of dismantle the spot in Coney Crossroads here. But let's get a nice drone shot here. We got Jelly, Edge for an assassin sitting in one of the buildings here. Oh, I really led into that point really well. So did the Observer, it looks like. But we got this here on this one edge. They have all of their shield up completely, well, health up here, and it looks like they're just ready to go to war, get to town, and just get this done with. They do have a combined total of 6 eliminations right here, and they are 9th on the leaderboard so far, as you can see in the bottom left. And there are just so many chunk splashes in this one building here, War.
I mean, that's the advantage to being the third, fourth party. You can find a lot of extra loot. You see a lot of people, when they get eliminations, they immediately throw down that shield bubble and they try to, you know, first off, secure revives on your team, which K-Burbs has to do right now for the team that's currently sitting in second place of NPen and Jaith. But the thing is, as long as no team pressures this, they should be able to get back up just fine, because look at the loot around them. Shockwaves, shield kegs, med kits, everything they could ask for. And now that they're all back up, they can potentially just use another shield bubble if they wanted to secure their positioning even more. But the thing that scares me, they're not in zone right now. Luckily, nobody really has any line of sight onto them. But as you can see here, the zone's about to take them over. They need to make a rotation, and they need to decide how they're doing it now.
Yeah, and it looked like they were kind of on a bit of low ground, but in comparison, Milk, Shiesty, and Redux here are going to be on some really great high ground with this. The bunker item that we just introduced into Zero Build, honestly, great thing here. And you can also combine it with the shield bubble to get extra protection here. And it's basically like adding builds into no builds. Able to get an elimination onto Duncan's, and Redux here is trying to get some. It looks like he's getting a lot of knocks, not too many eliminations. It looks like a lot of other teams are also kind of targeting the players that he's also trying to get some shots on. But I mean, you're still able to get that storm damage, the storm surge, so you're not going to get fall victim to that. But looks like Jaith, NPen, and K-Birds are going to be able to kind of make this rotation, but they are in kind of a tricky spot here, War.
Definitely in a tricky spot, but managing to use some of the old cover. And there's one person in particular I want to shout out in this end game. I don't think we've seen the POV yet, but it's going to be Luke D. Finds a position within zone next to Ben-K and Outrage. They probably rotated in as a duo and a solo, but they made it look like it's a trio because it's 3 players. They both found some low ground positions, and now they're just chilling, and that's huge for Luke, because if you remember, his teammates went down on the first zone, so managing to already accrue 6-7 placement points and potentially more, the zone pulling in their favor is absolutely massive.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of like placement, like I think the top 20 teams here go home with money, so you don't have to play your best if you still want to get some money here. I mean, top teams are going to get the most money here, but you could still be in the money if you're in the 20th place here. So if you're going to have to just sit in a corner and just wait for your team to be able to respawn next game, it's definitely worth it. And I think that's what Luke's going to be doing here. But moving over to Pal, Milks, and Redux, looks like they have also been able to get into zone right on the edge, but someone's going to be taking their high ground, getting Milks as a solo here. Pal and Redux just out of the game. He's just going to have to hide here with his shield bubble. But I mean, looks like Brutal and Skulls were able to get those eliminations. That's going to be huge for them. But now Milks is going to have to do the same thing that Luke was doing that we just saw earlier here.
And Luke with the 200 IQ play, now just on a sliver of HP. You can see him trying to glide in, but actually played a med kit in zone and then snuck up behind Ben K, getting one elimination before they fall. So making sure to leave their mark on this game. Another team that needs to leave their mark before this game ends is going to be Scab, Fear, and Skolzy, one of the only trios left on their feet, and they find an abundance of loot. Now it's just a question of how much mobility do they have, how much can they play together. But Brutal, Paris, Skulls definitely going to be playing together here. Has a shield bubble down, has a pad within their area, and now just needs to make this rotation safely. If they're able to land on their feet without taking too much damage, they should be set up perfectly.
No, definitely. And it looks like they are in first place right now, but that could definitely change as we get down to this top 14 here. Looks like we have 7 teams left. And I mean, I think a lot of them are solos. Speaking of solos, Fluger here, my pick here. He looks pretty stacked up with this shotgun, a launch pad, 3 different, 3 splashers and 3 movability shockwaves that he's going to be able to use once he has to move in. Looks like he's going to be able to do that now. And stealing this shield bubble, that is a great play. Going to be sitting down underneath that launch pad, just going to get some coverage. Already in top 4 teams right now, being able to hide right here. And it looks like he's not even the object of viewing right now. Paris, Skulls, and Brutal just don't see where he's at. He's in zone right now. He's going to have to start moving in as the circle just gets smaller and smaller. And Saps is just going to be trying to get in there as well here, War.
The counter shockwave plays come through, sending this team flying into zone. Paris managed to find the elimination on to Fluger, and Skulls in zone there to clean it up. That was a last-second clutch by them, but they managed to pick it up even when all 3 teammates were shockwaved into zone. A great victory royale for Skulls and co.
Oh, definitely. And I feel like we saw a lot more teams starting to get a lot more aggressive and trying to get those points up, those numbers up so they can get higher on the leaderboard. But I mean, that was a great game to be watching. I loved watching that. That was awesome. Fluger played well as a solo. We saw just, it was great. I had a great time.
I feel like that game was definitely defined by solo clutches. You had Luke, you had Outrage sneaking his way up into 4th or 5th, I believe. You had Fluger managing to get top 3. These are all of our top teams that we thought, because some of their teammates went down early, that, you know, they wouldn't do so well. But they proved us so wrong, and they proved us wrong at the exact right time when they needed to most. I'm looking forward to seeing how these players improve for the next 2 games. But to break down of this game, we gotta send it back to our analysts. So, Seb, Panda, Lash, take it away.
More and more, we continuously get impressed by Paris and Brutal, just continuously showing up. And at this point, we have to consider them in the top 3 because they've gotten better and better as every game has gone on. Lash, I know that there's some words that you want to give to this team.
Absolutely. I straight up have it in my notes right here. The game of the underdogs, flying under the radar throughout the first 3 games with an average placement of 3.5 as well. And they did an incredible job making it there to the final moments as well, picking up that first game victory royale. But Panda, we're taking a little bit of a look back here of all the teams because once again, it's the story of the all spawn.
It really is. So many teams that we think are credible and they're supposed to be up in this top 10 are struggling. They're finding some inconsistencies in the game plan now going into the second half, which unfortunately is the worst time to figure it out. So
Waddle, Fritz,
it's
where
tough.
are you at?
I can't believe it, dude. Honestly, I don't know if that's the host curse, caster curse we're seeing here or what, but that has been a big shift for this team.
Yeah, it's been difficult to see. Of course, you know, predictions aside, you want to see, you know, everyone kind of be able to compete, and when they're probably like not living up to the potential that they possibly could, you really want to see them play better. However, we still have 2 games remaining. I think when it comes to Jaith's team, however, they fell a little short. They still made, I believe, top 5. I could be wrong on that, but they still made it pretty far. So they're still in contention as well as Xcep's team. But I think at this point, both Jaith and Xcep, they're going to have to look at Paris and Brutal to see how they will be able to deal with them going forward. Also, Fluger. Shout out to Fluger for almost getting that soul. That was crazy.
It was indeed incredible, and you mentioned there Nounsy, Xcept, and Tragics, our team that was up into the top 3, and my prediction as well, ended up falling in 26, which was in that mid-game kind of sector where They went down, they took a fight too early, and the thing that we had mentioned that has plagued them time and time again is now seeming to sting even more, and this sting is quite venomous because this could be an unfortunate downfall, especially with, like I said, the underdogs are starting to get barking.
Yeah, dude, honestly, especially, so we talked about it going into game 3. They were in first place. They had every advantage going into this. It was just a matter of consistency. And unfortunately, they're a team that more often than not find themselves being inconsistent. Now, that doesn't mean they can't have a big breakout game in the second half here. It's definitely possible. But with teams like Jayth, Inpin, K-Burbs, literally, they finished 10th place in that game, 12. And I can count it, 12 eliminations. Like surpassing 10 elims is a feat in itself. But back-to-back 12 plus elimination games here for this team. This is just an upward trend that I don't see slowing down.
Yeah, we gave a big shout out to Nounsy's team for getting that 19 elims in a single game. But I mean, it's already hard enough to get that high, but to get 12 back to back and be able to consistently do it while getting good placements on top of it, it doesn't leave too much room for teams who are below that top 10 spot to really kind of get an entrance for themselves. So I think we're still just waiting on our leaderboard here, but it'll be really interesting to see where Paris' team will end up, as well as everyone else. I just hope that my boys are still in the top 10 or top 12, let alone top 10. And then as we can take a look here, as far as where the rest of the field is at with Velo, Luke D, and Trank, it will be in second. Paris, Brutal, and Scolds, however, taking the first place spot with 104 score, 82 in placements, and 22 elims. And even then, 22 elims still being enough generally to get to that number 1 spot, though it's still a close race. We have about 3 teams within 80 score of each other, and then the top 3 all being within 10 score of each other. So this isn't out and out just yet after game 4, but I think Lash, when it comes to Paris, Brutal, and Scold, they're still on track to really distancing themselves if they have another good game.
Absolutely. We're seeing a exact same play style come out on top time and time again. The teams that were early fraggers are now starting to distance themselves because they're getting too aggressive. Every single one of our top 5 teams are teams that had maybe a little scruffle at the beginning of the match, and then now, they're playing the distance here, waiting until the final moments. Therefore, they can get their grasp to get those eliminations towards the end game. You can notice their placement is significantly higher, and then you take a look down to teams that have slipped consistently down the leaderboards. They either were super scarce on elims or super scarce on placement.
And Panda, go ahead.
No, I'm looking at a lot of things right now. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm looking at Ben K, for example. 10th place, consistently finding themselves in 10th place, mind you. On top of this, I messaged him. I was like, Ben, what's going on? Talk to me. He's like, look, honestly, we're contested. It's been a struggle off spawn, but for us still being in the top 10, we're making it work, clearly. So, you know what? These last 2 games could be big for them. I know they're going to go for the big game. We'll see how that unfolds. But it's going to be exciting last 2 games here, folks.
Yeah, I think one thing to note is that out of the top 8, all of them are within 30 points of each other. So essentially, if you're below that top 8, I mean, good luck. That includes you, Ben K, but the top 8 are still within 30, which makes things somewhat in reach. So we'll see how that unfolds in our next game. So please, casters, applesauce, and more, take it away.
And thank you very much, Seb. We will most definitely take it away, or at least the players will take it away with their incredible action. This is the penultimate game. 2 games left, Apples. What do you expect from players this game? Do you expect a switch up of strategies, or do you think it's going to be more of the same from our top teams?
So I feel like we see a lot during the 5th and 6th games, a lot of players start to go more aggressive. So I feel like we're also, in counteract of that, going to see a lot of players try to go passive and get that placement score. If they're just right outside of 20th place and they want to get in that money, I don't know, order some pizza tonight. They could be able to be just going a little bit more passive because you could easily get into the top 40, in top 50. Like, that's a lot of points that you're able to get that. I mean, we do start getting really, really aggressive towards 20th circle or 20th place. But I feel like we're going to see a lot more aggression, but also counter aggression. So maybe a little bit of the same there. What about you, Moore?
And I'm just excited to get into this game full of action. We got Brutal recently took over first place. They've been running Synapse Station throughout the entirety of this tournament, and they haven't been playing it too aggressive off spawn, other than the previous game where they sort of contested against Luke D a little bit up into the Flutter Barn area. However, they have a lot of potential out of this POI, and you can even see how they're splitting it up here. They actually send one player out to the loot boat. I gotta shout out that POI, one of my favorite sort of little mini outskirts drops on the map. I'll drop there in solos, duos, trio squads, whatever it is. It's got great loot no matter what. So a little bit more loot, a little boost to their confidence being uncontested, and hopefully they're gonna get lucky this game and come in with a back-to-back victory royale.
Definitely. They have so much here that they're going to be able to get, and they're going to have all those movability items and bunker items that they're going to be able to use in the end circle. So Brutal, Paris, the Skulls, they have a great setup right here. Moving on to another player that we've been talking about lately here, Ben K and his team. They are right in Shiny Sound. This is like a it's a contested area here for them, so this is dangerous. He's gonna have to drop really quick and get all these items. But War, you had something to say about Ben K, I think, right?
100%. I mean, this man gave me so much hype on a previous no builds competition when I maybe wasn't even doing the best, but I gotta give this man hype. The reason he said I was doing great was because I was playing a bit more aggressive. But the thing I love about Ben K's playstyle right now is he's toned it down. He's going more passive. He's the only player within the top 10 who has less than 10 eliminations. Only player within the top 12. And he's doing this all well contested, while only taking a little bit of this mansion part of the POI, and they're actually performing placement to perfection, which is usually not what we see from Ben K, especially in the Tim the Tatman hoedown. You know he can go so aggressive off spawn, but shows that he can play the placement too just as well. That's why he's a top collegiate competitor and a top caster.
Oh, definitely. I totally agree with that. I mean, Ben K is just so multifaceted, and watching him throughout this career has just been great. Just seeing him grow. But speaking of another caster pair, Twaddle and Merc here are only playing as a duo. This was Seb's prediction here, the Canadian boys, and it looks like they are already down a player here, but they are kind of out in the outskirts. It's going to be a big rotate for them, but looks like they are both going to be hopping into a boat, so they're going to be moving on their way here. But Synapse Station looks like it's still uncontested for Paris, Bruto, and Skulls here.
Still uncontested, and look at the loot in Paris's inventory already. You can see how, I mean, he had the floppers obviously, but the floppers also come in coolers and they come with chug splashes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brutal and Skulls are both stacked on chug splashes right now. Some of the best healing items in the game. And what I like about Paris's loot specifically, he's playing for endgame. He's playing for the clutch position. He has 4 shockwaves, and he has the shield bubbles, which only lasts for a bit of time, but it shows that he can be moving around fast, completely in cover, and he's going to be the one at the end of the game who is clutching up those big placement points when it matters most.
Yeah, and it looks like he also got those chili splashers from that mini vault that I saw there. So that's going to be great for endgame as well. Going to be able to run as quick as he needs to and use those shockwaves to get across the map. But moving on over to Milk's Pal and Redux, another really high team on this leaderboard, team number 6. Looks like they are also kind of in the middle of nowhere, using these geysers from movement to move closer to the reality tree. It doesn't look like there's too many people near them. we're seeing a lot more spaced out in the beginning of this game. Lots more slow play styles here from all these players, which I love seeing. I love just having everyone being able to get as much loot as they can. Nothing too contested off spawn, so we get the mid-game fights that are just going crazy. And it looks like Aimbred is actually going to get Trank off spawn here as well in the feed here.
And Trank going down again off spawn. This is the second time that player is going down before the first zone closes. I think we need to see whatever's happening on that fight, whether Luke and Co are still on their feet, but more fights are breaking out across the map, so we can't just stick to one side of action. We gotta catch all. It's gonna be Milks, the Greasy Grove team, looking to go aggressive on to one of the teams that's doing some of the weird splits out near the mushroom farm and the area around the reality tree, and it looks like they're just gonna go aggressive. They realize they've split up these players. One went one way, two went the other way, and if they go as a trio, they're guaranteed to get these eliminations unless these players have insane mobility.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like Redux may need a bit more ammo, so they could just be trying to get really aggressive here. But it looks like Pal decided to kind of just leave. It looks like just moving around, just kind of chasing this guy. And look, that's the elimination. They're able to get that knock and elimination onto side jump. So this is going to be great for them. They're going to be able to kind of loot up and move around. They are still in zone, so there's not too much that they have to do right now. They are able to just stick it and just walk around and just, you know, just get as much loot as they need to be able to make it into endgame here.
And they're on the dead side of the zone. That's the most important part of their positioning right now. They're going to have, most likely, unless the zones go in crazy waves, the least space to rotate through, and they will not be pressured as much as any other teams. With the eliminations they've already gotten, I'm sure they've amounted some amazing loot. But for Luke, it's not about loot. It's about just staying alive and clutching up. You saw that amazing clutch all the way into 9th place with a couple eliminations as well from him in the previous game. But definitely doesn't really have a loadout to clutch here again, and I wouldn't make it rest on clutches each time. You want it to be you winning these games because you're up as a full trio in dominant fashion, and right now they don't have that win condition, so they need to find somewhere where they can rotate.
No, definitely. It looks like we have about 2 teams right here near Flutter Barn. Another one kind of moving in just a little bit closer, but it looks like Sap and team is going to be just sitting there. I mean, they are on the edge of Storm. There's not going to be too many players moving in, so it's a pretty good spot. Speaking of great spots, Fluger, Moot, and Taxi are right on top of the Wraith Cave head. This is kind of a targetable area, but looks like they are going to be able to kind of hold it down pretty well. They're moving around, going to make sure that they're checking up all their angles. So, I mean, this is great. This is just like how we saw the hot air balloons kind of all across the map. I mean, you have the mobility, you have the visibility, and you're able to see exactly where the storm's going to be moving. And along with that, it's just a great spot for them to be able to just chill and wait. And Wraith Cave is also a great place to be able to loot up. There's just so much there.
But unfortunately for Duncan and EC, there's no time to wait. You got Ben K and Co right on your tail. You got to get out somehow or just look to play this zone. But you know how far away this zone is going. This is going to be such a difficult strategy. We talk a lot about how can players look to sort of get their teammates back on their feet, or if you're down a player, how to get them back alive in the game and back with your team. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to play a bit of Storm. Now, the difficult thing about this in zero builds is you have nothing to operate with. Therefore, you can't like stoke campfires. You can't build up and do a high launch pad out. So you can really only go off the blimps. And if everybody looks to do the exact same thing and rotate off those blimps, it might be a problem for different contest stations inside of the Storm. But for Velo, Luke D, the problem is going to be other teams aggressing onto their position. They've lost the zone pull. They're completely split up now, and it's going to be Capo and Co who are looking to push this engagement, which is a very scary team that is currently sitting in our top 3.
Yeah, this is a really interesting split here for Velo and Luke. I mean, they're going to be able to view more ground and be able to see when the next team decides to get more aggressive. That is Sap. But I mean, just staying away from your player when you are already down one, that I'm not sure how that's going to turn out, but we're going to have to find out just a little bit later. But moving in on this dead side, Rotate, Clout, Kashi, and Leroy. I mean, moving on, they have a pretty solid loot loadout right now. They have the launch pads and the chug splashes and a shield keg. I mean, it's pretty solid. They could be able to use this, but it looks like they're just kind of rotating around right on the money on team number 20 on the line. I mean, they're already in it. They're just going to be playing for placement, trying to get a little bit higher right there. It looks like they were just going pretty passive. But speaking of... gonna have to do a bit of figuring out here what Scolds is gonna have to do to be able to stay team number 1 here, as he is a solo right now. War
Solo, the first place team, gonna be a solo. The second place team, just as I say that, going down in the feeds. So this could be a completely opened up leaderboard, especially if Scold is not able to get their teammates back up. Luckily, if you want to reboot somebody in Storm, Chonker Speedway is probably gonna be the best place to do it. But I think we figured out exactly who took those eliminations and also took the body. What is this? Wait, are they just stealing Paris? Is Paris just gone from Scolds? What?
Interesting situation here. I mean, I guess you can do this. This is definitely able for you to happen. I mean, Tragic, except and Nouns, you're able to see Paris and are like, ooh, that's the number 1 team. Let's just try and grab him, making sure that we know exactly where he is, so his teammate's not going to be able to grab it. They're just chilling up in the air, moving past Flutter Bar. This is really interesting. I'm loving this right now, War.
And I want to say there's 2 advantages to this. One, you have first place in your grasp. I mean, now out of your grasp, just converted into loot, but you're able to get their loot, and you're also able to deny the reboot of first place. When you're in 6th place and you're about 20 points off, that is absolutely massive to have that insurance that first place is going to have to struggle as a duo. Crim's also finding a lot of struggle here in the reality tree, completely split up from his team and cut out of the competition. He's gonna have to rely on game 6 for their final opportunity to clutch up.
Yeah, definitely. That's just unfortunate, but we have seen them been able to clutch up earlier in I think even just last game, they were able to clutch up that first place victory royale. So it's, if I could see it from anyone, it would be from them. But looks like Kashi, Leroy are now only a duo. Their trio member looks like it was kind of they got eliminated, so right now they're only playing as a duo, moving past the reality tree, but they're kind of walking on a minefield, as we can see that there are so many different teams just kind of walking around, especially in reality trees. So looks like this may be where the center circle could pull to, or at least moving past. But it looks like Fluger, Tax, and Moo have the reality tree down pat right now, so it's gonna kind of be hard to kind of get in here if they really want to. War.
One of the things I love about this is Fluger, Tax, Moo have so much experience in 0 builds, and they have so much experience in that reality tree positioning. I've seen them on that tree countless times just in other competitions. Just they play to their advantage, they play to their strengths, and they play for the most advantageous positioning. But you don't need positioning if you can hit your shots like Sigma did just there. A huge tag onto a player into zone. That elimination is definitely going to be converted in their favor. And now one more in the distance. They can barely pick out these pixel tags that they're getting, but 2 eliminations, a great start to the game, especially because they're being contested every single game.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just 4 on the board for this game right now. But moving back to Rave Cave that we did saw a little bit earlier, looks like it is now getting pretty contested inside and on top. We see one team starting to move off. It looks like they could have been on the head of the little teddy bear. But right now, Dopey Chick and Oprah Winfrey are just going to be sitting right now waiting by the east side of the wind tunnel. Looks like we also have another team, Benkei and Parsec, sitting in the indestructible spot. No one could shoot them here or get eliminations, and it looks like they may know that they're here, but they could also be undetectable right now.
they're definitely going to hear the glider sound effects. However, there's nothing they can do, and that's what I love. BenK with the cheeky strategies. I respect this gameplay so much as somebody who plays zero builds between either porta potties, rave cave, wind tunnels, or some other weird tornado hiding spot that I can get to. But the challenging part is when you have to make that rotation. You don't know where other players are around you because you don't have that line of sight when you're all the way down in the wind tunnel. So you have to improvise on exactly where you're gonna go. And for Yodopi and Co, this improvisation has to happen very, very quickly. Otherwise, you are gonna get eliminated. You can see the porta bunker was thrown right underneath high ground in a way that they can't even see this team if they're on high ground. So hopefully this positioning pays off for one zone, but I'm not sure if it's gonna go the entire way. For BenK, it doesn't seem to be, as they get taken out by Nevify, another one of our top teams, now just on the back of Parzik.
Yeah, definitely. Moving over to Aim Red, Sap, and Capo. It looks like they are right on the edge of Storm, trying to get some last-minute shots, as they can see Tragic, Down Z, and Except in the distance. They're trying to chase them right now. They can see them in the distance. They are now number 2 in Aim Red. I feel like we're seeing him kind of live up to expectations that he set in previous zero build competitions were. I feel like, would you say that? We've seen him really be able to pop off, but looks like he's really gotten into a trio that's been able to kind of figure out exactly what his skills are and moving him into the right spot. Because I think I remember we were talking to Bass for the past, and he said Aim Red is great, but he just needs a really good IGL to be able to help him out and make sure that his talents are not going to be like taken advantage of. But it looks like Capo is going off of spawn here, but Aim Red's still popping off of Tragics right now, War.
Popping off, but I'm not sure how much longer this pop-off can last. Some valiant effort from Aim Red. It's just the positioning was a little bit too scuffed down on that low ground, but the positioning for Milk seems to just be this aggressive, this fragging play style from them. They take in straight into the house. They're claiming their rentals insurance. They got the home all to themselves, and they got these eliminations. Redux may be down in the process, but again, you have so much loot around you that it does not matter. They're all going to be max HP after these engagements. All they need to worry about now is their rotation.
Yeah, Shiesty has 7 eliminations right now. I mean, absolutely fragging out. When you have someone who's able to hit their shots on your team, you just put them in front of anyone that you can, especially when it's game 5 of 6 of the Collegiate Cup, when you're trying to get into that money. But it looks like Tax, Fluger, and Moo are in the high ground for like, I think this is like the 5th time we see them in high ground, at least in the last couple games. Like, they have really been able to refine their spot in line. It looks like they're now on team 6. Able to get some eliminations, as they can see other players moving around. Oh, but gets headshot from across the way. I mean, thankfully Tax is going to be able to get revived from his teammates, but that just gets rid of so much of their inventory here as they're trying to heal him up.
And that's the scary thing. A headshot takes away effectively the 250 HP that you have. So you have to use both your shield kegs and a lot of your splashes that you can be using as a team. Now it's all going to be put onto one person. So that's scary for them in the end game, because if they run out of heals, if they get headshot sniped about one more time, that could be all their heals completely gone.
Definitely. So you're just going to want to either be the one with a sniper or not really expose yourself on high ground like that. But it looks like he's going to be able to get revived here, but we're getting a lot of engagement here as we are down to 33 players. Edge for Assassin and Jelly trying to get as many shots as they can on. There's so many teams just right around them. They got so many knocks, but the eliminations have not come through yet. Throwing down another shield bubble, just going to be able to keep them here as NPED, K-Dubs, and Jade are coming around the corner, and it looks like we may get into a bit of a tussle here, War.
Yeah, and if I'm edge 4, and I know the team right in front of me, I am scared. Your shield bubble is about to run out. You have one more that you can play in your inventory. They play it down instantly. That at least causes the disengagement from one team, but they forgot about the one player just sitting up in the house. That's going to be a solo. They can be able to confirm that elimination. They just have to risk a bit of extension for it, but they don't even risk that. That's the craziest part of it. They know their positioning is so good and it's so important, and having all 3 players on your feet is going to be vital for winning the game, that they don't even want to push themselves that far.
Yeah, definitely none. It looks like we are just getting so many shield bubbles thrown down on the ground as we are starting to get so congested in this small little circle, moving into 5th zone. And I mean, I just really want to see like a bunch of overlapping shield bubbles. Just everyone throw it down. Everyone just have a good time. I mean, Party Royale. Vibin' is the name of the season, right? But I mean, I guess for these players, they do want to play and get the money and get into team number 1, just like Jafe, Edpen, and K-Birds here. So they're going to be trying to get as many eliminations and shots on others as Edge 4 and Assassin are going to be sitting right on the edge of their shield bubble. And it looks like they're going to be trying to get in there, throwing down a Pepper Splash, and just going to be sitting right here. So many shield bubbles going down, moving into their own shield bubble, getting these eliminations. That's going to be huge for them. They have 10 on the board for this game alone so far, and it looks like they're not going to be slowing down at any time here.
They have no reason to slow down. They're that dominant of a team. All 3 of them acting as one. The shots fly in. That's Skullsy gone. That's the entire trio completely wiped out. And now only 6 trios left on their feet. They're looking up to high ground. They see Tax. They see Fluger. They see Moo. They see where the zone is pulling. And they know it's going to be over the high ground. So they're investing the porta bunkers early, making sure they can hold on to the high ground that they've had since about zone 3. But there's other teams. There's Femboy Bobby's team. There's Redux's team. There's Yodopi as a solo. There's so many players left in this game. It's Ken, Fluger, Moo, and Tax hold on to the high ground, or Jafe go up and attempt to contest it. It looks like he goes, but unfortunately gonna be taken out, completely eliminated there. This is the first place team fighting for their life in the game. They don't even realize it, but there's a team sneaking up right behind them. If they overcommit to this, they're gonna lose sight of what really matters here. Their shockwaves to sort of disrupt the team in front of them. They finally see the team that's gonna be below them. They're completely pinched. They have shockwaves. They have launch pads, but when will they use it when the storm is pushing them out?
Yeah, definitely. This is a terrible position for this team to be in, especially as team number 1. But it looks like we are starting to get a lot more eliminations on the other side of the mountain, and K-Bird is going to try and move over there. But it does not really work. N-Pen is the only one left here. 5 splashers. And I mean, they do have a primed shotgun and a hammer AR, so they could be able to get this shot right here onto Crisp. Able to knock him down almost getting that elimination right there. Now he's going to have to use all of those splashers here, but that's another one on the board. That is a total math. That's 13 eliminations, and he's able to get the last one onto Redux, getting him that victory out and keeping them number 1 on this leaderboard. Woo! I did not expect that war.
What was that? What was that?
I did not expect that at all.
That was just crazy. The trigger discipline. Saw Chris right in front of him. Held it. Got the shots on about 30 HP. Picks up the elimination. Looks around. Doesn't see anybody. Still has the position. Sees Redux in front of him. Quick shot. Just quickly eliminated. That was the insane clutch. That is why I predict this team. Jafe, K-Burbs, N-Pen, despite going down early throughout the moving zones, and despite having a slow start to the day, I said they're a back half team, and that is why.
Oh, well, okay. So they have really solidified themselves in this position as number 1 team, but I really want to hear what the Dusk has to say about that, because that was an absolutely crazy game. Let's throw it over to Alash and Panda. I can't believe I almost forgot them.
Forgot my name too, apparently. But what was that? That was crazy. What a way to end it. There was like 6 people alive. I think the zone ended up moving. And N-Pen being patient as ever, just waiting for everyone to just start dropping like flies. Lash.
It was just insane. I'm sitting there like, I don't know who's gonna win. There's a team up on top of the hill. That's Fluger. I didn't see Bobby until the final moments while they were on height, because they got the positional zone, and then you just got N-Pen there, K-Burbs there, making a sneaky decision to go down below, hit the rotates, and then be the best team coming out on top because they had the one and only best rotates.
It was tough. I'm going to say it now. Look, when K-Burbs got beamed out of the sky, I thought it was done.
That was crazy. Yeah.
I was like, oh man, okay, N-Pen's going to go down shortly after. But no, N-Pen successfully makes it behind a rock, and I'm like, okay, this is going to hold him on for a little bit. Crisp is right around the corner. He literally pulls up next to Crisp. Crisp completely misses him. Doesn't realize he's there. and then he gets the advantage. And for a second, it looked like Chris was going to turn it around. Like his shots connected so well onto NPen, but NPen got the final shot, stayed alive in the game, and then when everybody else fell and Redux was down to 1 HP in a dream, NPen striked.
And it was such an incredible performance too, because like that is one where you need to showcase the absolute best patience that you possibly can. And he nearly dropped it too. I can't remember who he was ended up fighting with, but he almost completely whiffed it before pulling out the shotgun at the end. And it was just on top of that, on top of the luck in terms of the zone, the positioning, everything just worked out. There it was. Yeah, the fight with Crisp at the end was just way too close for comfort. That last shot, you could see everyone else just falling to the storm or to each other. It was an incredible performance. And Panda, you called that, or it might have been Lash. One of you two called that Jaith was going to get a second game by the time this was done. And I think this might go to the game 6 to be the decider. And we will be getting our standings ready. But in terms of the lead that we saw Paris and company have, they weren't there very much at the very end, which might start to tip the scales a little bit, really even things out. And again, we won't know until we get the leaderboard. But what a performance from NPen and Jaith that they were able to be consistent, especially at the end when everything just looked so crazy.
Yeah, it came down to that moment, right, Panda? Like, Jaith were there, they were chilling, and then it was just an ultimate, like, easy dub for them, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look, I think this win will solidify them first place or second place, very close to first. It really depends on how Paris's team did, obviously, and we'll see that here in a moment. But I think this is the perfect setup for them to come into game 6, be consistent, and walk away with the win, which is what we see time and time again for Jaith. No matter who he plays with, this is the same end result we see time and time again.
Yeah, it'll be also interesting to see the eliminations too, because we still had Moo and Fluger into it, as well as Tax, who are definitely taking down quite a bit. So let's take a look at where things stand right now as the standings for the East Coast will be up. And as said, Jaith, K-Burbs, and NPen taking the top spot, but it doesn't look totally out of it just yet. Possibly Blue, Femboy, or Bobby and Chris being able to hold down that second place spot as well. And my boys, they somehow came in out of nowhere. Grits, Twaddle, and Ninja Mark will be able to come in at third currently. And this makes game 6 very, very interesting. I think it is very much, Flash, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is very much a game Jaith's teams to lose.
I am getting flashbacks right now back to September. For those of y'all that may have missed it back in September of the Zero Build Collegiate Cup, or you need a little bit of refresher, this is the exact same thing that happened back then, where Jaith took over first place leading into the final game and didn't lose it. Meanwhile, we had teams like Nowzy, Except Tragics that had a lead in the first half of the tournament. They fell. The same thing has happened again, and the underdogs are trying to scratch up, but it is becoming a little bit too scarce right now. I don't know if anybody's catching up here.
I don't know either.
It'll be quite difficult, and I think we're still getting our lobby ready. It should be just about good to go. But yeah, as far as Jaith, they rounded out the qualification for this with 2 wins, which seemed to have been enough for them. But things might be looking a bit dire as far. And yes, we will take a look at the wins. I think it's crazy that we still have. Oh, is this for? Is this updated standings?
This is updated standings.
This is updated standings. So I did get baited in that my Canadian team was actually doing well.
Dang, I was rooting for him too. When I saw them up on the leaderboard, I was like, man, what a crazy comeback. But listen, that's a surprise we get, Seb. That's the little bait and switch. But hey, look, this leaderboard's still looking strong. There is one big absence, though, and that is Ben K from 10th place falling to 12th. He's held 10th place, him and his team, this entire competition, and now they're finally starting to fall. So they're going to need to change some things up here if they want to stay at least in the top 12.
Yeah, also quick mentioning the 52 limbs, of course, Jace's team not only being the top both in wins and in score, but also fragging absolutely out with 52 limbs, superseding anyone else. So it will come down to game 6. We'll see if Jace will be able to wrap it up here. It's going to be game 6. So please, casters, applesauce and more, our last one, take it away.
It's Panda.
We're excited to break down the final action. Look, I couldn't get enough on the analyst desk, so I had to come hang out with my boy, War. Now, War, before we begin, do you want to admit to the audience that I beat you in a 1v1 before all this started?
I will admit to the audience, I lost 3-4. I'm admitting it.
Okay, as long as we're all here.
But you stole my prediction.
No, you stole my prediction. He actually literally asked me who was going to win, and I said, oh, it's definitely going to be Jathan and Pink K-Burbs. And he's like, okay, I'm picking them. I'm like, well, that's my pick, but okay. So, look, that's how it happens sometimes, but we let it slide. No, War and I are going to break down the final game, the final moment for these players to walk away with some of the best prizing in both Collegiate and Zero build right now. So I'm excited. Are you excited, War?
Hey, I'm excited to break it down with somebody who is willing to go the extra mile and steal my prediction. That's what I'm excited
Okay,
for.
You know what? Listen, it's okay. It's okay. You have to follow someone with Fortnite knowledge like me. I understand. It makes perfect sense.
I mean, at least you're on the same page as me now that the team that's in first place is going to win. Can we at least agree to that?
I believe that Jathan and Pin and K-Burbs do win. Yes.
Same. Okay, we're on the same page.
And you know what? I'm glad to share this with you because you know what? Despite War and I's differences, I definitely think War is a great guy. And I'm excited to be able to break not only down our winners at the end of this, because we already know it's going to be Jathan, Pin, and K-Burbs. But I'm also excited to break down game number 6, the final game of the day here with War. And my man, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to see another win potentially from Jathan, Pin, K-Burbs? Do you think another team could potentially climb back up? What's your thoughts?
Now, if I'm Jathan and Pen and K-Burbs right now, I am just playing this game safe and controlled. They have a lead, but that lead is only about 15 points. So if they go down early, that's going to be detrimental because it allows both second and third to come back on the leaderboard. So I don't expect them to go for the win. If the win comes to them, that's awesome. They're just gonna play it consistent because we know at the start of the competition, they had a 23rd place. It's possible that they go down early, and it's always possible that the gap is opened up by any of these teams that we know are all top competitors, just like Kai, landing some amazing shots on the Tender, and now evening up this fight as he finally goes down, now just on the back of Chris.
Yeah, looking here, though, you see Chris just trying to keep it alive here for his team. But when you're going up against a player like Shades, you have to be careful. Big shots come through, and he actually wins the fight. Shades has gone down here in the final game, and Chris keeps his team alive.
And that was such an innovative play by Chris there, using the Chrome form to jump over the player and then immediately hitting that huge tag. That's going to be absolutely incredible for them jumping up on the leaderboard. But speaking of teams who need to jump up on the leaderboard, we got to talk about Crisp. It almost sounds like Chris, but it's not. It's the team that's currently in third place, 1 point behind second place team of Redux, Pal, and Milk. And you already know they're hungry for this victory royale in the final game.
Yeah, look, this is going to be great. I'm super pumped to watch how close this is going to be because remember, Redux, Pal, Milks, 117 points. Jath, K-Burbs, and Pin, 131 points in first place. And in third place, like you mentioned, you got Bobby, Crisp, and Nevify with 116. They're only 1 point off of second place. So all it takes is an elim, one placement point to come through and the other team to go down, and now they're in second. So the fight really is close in this top three, but it's going to be tough to see anybody else walk away with it other than Jade, K-Burbs, and Impen with how consistent they have been in the second half.
They definitely are a second half team, but a team that definitely wants to be a second half team. Brutal Paris and Scolds in the previous game, basically everything went wrong. They got aggressed. They their teammate basically carried halfway across the map just to ensure they couldn't reboot. And now they've found themselves in 4th place, despite in the previous game being the first overall team. So they definitely want to take this game a little bit slower, a little bit more controlled. They're still in a good spot, but with one game being a complete zero, being a complete donut on their track record, they need to make something big happen.
They need to make something big happen, but they got a very limited time to do it, to be honest. This is it, folks. This is the last game of this competition. And so these players understand this. The pressure is at an all-time high. And for players like Fluger, it don't matter because they've lived in this pressure zone, walking away time and time again, finding success. And this is not going to slow down anytime soon as Fluger picks up a nice knock there. And now they just fully disengage.
Fully disengaging because they see that Nevify's team in the distance, the current 3rd place team, has looked to aggress onto this fight. They've taken both opposing mountains, and it looks like the team on low ground has been forced into an absolutely shambles position. A great job of Fluger for being aware of the team on high ground. Otherwise, they could have easily been eliminated, but for now, they just need to prioritize their rotation. 1 point on the board is a good start to this game. It's just about how they put themselves in endgame and what their exact positioning is going to be.
Yeah, looking at the leaderboard as of right now, Fluger, Moo, Tax, if they want to walk away, even in the top 3, in my opinion, they have to secure the win. The Victory Royale will be the only course that they can take to walk away in the top 3. Now, that's not to say that it's not possible, but it's going to be tough considering they found themselves going into this game with 102 points, which was just under 30 points off of that 1st place spot. So it'll be a close call, but for teams like Mellow, Psycho, and Frosty who are looking to turn this around and try to climb even further into the top 10, it's all about those eliminations.
Definitely is all about those eliminations, and they don't take down a sleeper team either. They take out Seb's prediction. The team that started the competition in 3rd place has been going a bit slow for them throughout the day. Now finally able to, you think, find rhythm, but just as they start getting the semblance of hope, it just gets taken away from them. Hope still in the eyes of Sap Games, though, as they're just putting on pressure onto Baz High Ground. But our 2nd place team currently getting pressured out by Crumbler and co. This is the fight we have seen already before throughout the competition. It looks like Snowy's just gonna disengage. Already lost both of their teammates. Is getting pinched by Scolds in the distance. I don't even think he realizes, but all they know is they need to get out and get out soon.
This is tough here for Snowy, Crumbler, and Godkicker, who find themselves in the top 10, but it looks like for not much longer. If Snowy goes down here, that leaves a major gap open for teams like Outrage, Benkei, Parzik, who found themselves outside the top 10 going into this game. So this could be the turnaround for them. But for Paris, Scolds, and Brutal, it's more about putting some points on the board to climb back, reclaim their top spot that they once held so high.
Want to reclaim that top spot. They got a couple white tags on to the player running away, but they're just not going to chase it for now just because they have this zone favor on the dead side of Storm. They also hear reboots around them. I think that was a double reboot of a team rotating into Greasy Grove for extra loot, but I don't think they know that this is still the team that started at Greasy Grove there of Redux, Pal, and Milk. So potentially a couple eliminations gifted to this team.
Yeah, look, some gifts come easy, some gifts don't. But for these players, they have been fighting. Not only fighting for these eliminations, but fighting for the opportunity to be the Collegiate Cup champion of the Zero Build competition here for the November season. Look, this is no easy task to even get to this point. And for the players that have made it here, man, oh man, do they have an opportunity in front of them to shine. And that's what we see here, especially from a team like PAL, Redux, Milks, who find themselves in 2nd place going into this game, meaning that they were one of few who have a chance to reclaim or claim the top spot here in the competition. So it's all going to come down to them. Will they be able to hold on? Will they be able to do things? Will 1st place go down? So many questions left unanswered despite this being the final game. I can't wait to see when those questions get answered, because War, this is it. Here it is. Will they be able to do something? You see Fluger escaping in the area. Nostalgia connecting some crucial shots there, and now just going for the rift.
There's actually, I think 3 or 4 teams just in this small area. You can see another team, the green arrows seem to be propagating at that rift area. They actually find Cullen Mills. That's gonna be Femboy Bobby, I think, who gets that push. I don't even know how they made that push all the way from Grim Gables, but either way, they make it here. And now Nostalgia and Rad are sort of left in shambles. They haven't really had a definite drop spot throughout this competition, just like Ben-K, who's been all over the place, rebooting his teammates left, right, and center, and now on a sliver of HP in the air, just has to pray that these shots don't hit him. All it takes is 1 or 2 shots. One comes in, he now has to land and pop a fish, getting behind cover, and this is Ben-K's final game. This is their last chance to stay in the 12th place spot or gain any higher on the leaderboard.
This is rough. This is rough, man. Ben-K losing his teammates here early, now holding on to what seems like a very loose thread. This could be everything. This could be it for him, I should say. But no, Ben-K says, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself. I have the chug splashes. I know a path to get over to the campfire. So now it's just a matter of how long do I have to stay in Storm before I can make my way back into this game, back into the fold. Because the longer you're in Storm, the more likely you can cause Storm sickness, the more damage you take. So many factors play into it. And he's going to have to be careful with the amount of time he spends in there. But he's staying alive. And this could mean that his team finds their way to the end game if they play this out smart.
Definitely have to play this out smart, but with teams such as our first place team, Jake, NPen, K-Burbs, they're currently holding on to one of the, I think, best positions to take. Look at all the mushrooms around the area that they have. It's a high ground position, but there's no way that teams from Greasy Grove or anywhere south of them can look to pressure just because there's so much contestation all around. So all they need to do is watch their back and they should be quite all right. As we see Velo getting a bit active in the feed, I'm so glad to see that team finally finding at least some rhythm off spawn with the struggles they've had the past few games.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. NPen, Jaith, K-Burbs, they're playing this to perfection. They do not need to be aggressive. They do not need to do more than just survive, because that's all it'll take. Just being consistent, making it into the end game will be more than enough for them to walk away with the top spot. So they're going to take full advantage of that. And I'm excited to see if this is going to continue to play out in their favor. But when you have teams like Redux, POW, Milks still in this game, it's still a threat to that top spot on the leaderboard, especially even Nevify, Bobby, and Crisp, who found themselves in third by only 1 point. I mean, look, this competition is so close. I cannot stress how close it is, because it all comes down to this. The final moments here, and Redux, Milks, and POW doing a very similar strategy in being patient to Jaith, K-Burbs, and NPen.
Feels like all the top teams just want to play it patient, want to play it slow. Other than Ben-K, who has to reboot both of his teammates, make it all the way down to the south side of the zone, somehow find loot. But everybody else, you know, has to play the slow game, play for those placement points, because all Jaith, K-Burbs, and NPen needs are maybe like a 10th, top 10, top 5 to push themselves into the first place and secure it for the entire day. But we know how much Elam potential players like Chris, Bobby, and Nevify have, but I don't think they know that there's a player in that bush, a team that takes them by utter surprise. Shield bubbles go down for both teams. The rock coming into play, both Bobby and Nevify get rolled over, and now this fight is going on in full force.
This fight is unfolding. Crisp losing his teammate Nevify. He is down, but not out here as he tries to get the reboot. Another team does look like they're approaching just on the edge of zone. Now, just trying to exchange the res here, it looks like, but the fight continues. Again, the longer you spend in Storm, the more risk you have. And unfortunately for that, Oprah's out. Oprah Winfrey is out of this game as Crisp is taking him out, but it looks like they're not done yet. They're going to be going for the remainder of the teammates here. Big shot comes out, but Crisp is not going to be able to connect it. This team so close to glory here as Chick ends up going down. Crisp picks it up, and now just one player remains on this team, and they are absolutely hunting.
But even if they get these eliminations, they're not out scotch-free. Look at Kashi in Ko's position up on that old Dusty Depot area. Nades are flying in. They have to shield bubble again just to maintain their positioning. Luckily, they've been able to claim 2 of the bodies, but they don't even have that much loot there. There's a vault right below. They're even checking it to see what's here. Is there anything left? It doesn't even look like it. So now the mobility and the utility is sort of at an all-time low for this team and still outside of zone. I wouldn't be surprised if they're just going to be focused on the way in.
You know, it's quite risky to take that particular vault with that team above. All it takes is a few nades into the vault and they're done. So fortunately, they were able to execute real quickly in there. They got what they needed, got out, and they're still alive in this game. However, this is going to be a tough rotation. So many top teams yet still in this game and close by. Cloudsy, Kashi, and Leroy, though, looking for the return. The return to glory and the return to a great spot on the leaderboard because they find themselves not necessarily in the top 12, but they're looking to change that here in the final moments.
Definitely gonna be looking to change that. A lot of pressure on this team. I know we're talking a lot about this team in terms of drop spots. It started out on paper to be quad conned at Rave Cave. First game, I think they were unconned, and then people realized, oh, it's only one team dropping here. It's such a big POY. We're just gonna take this loot from them, and it's been utter chaos for this team. Luckily, they've been able to get a good pull and a good position on this zone. Seems like the next zone's gonna pull into their favor, as well as Brutal, Paris, and Scold's favor as they look to pressure one of the other top teams in the game. A shockwave nade comes in. Luckily, I don't even know how, misses all 3 of them. The second one also misses all 3, I think. They're just getting so lucky with the positioning of these nades. Finally, a nade to disrupt, but still holding on to their position fairly well.
Look, the shockwave plays, while useful, in my opinion, were a little early here from XF Nounsy and his team. And unfortunately, I understand the thought. They're like, hey, we'll destroy as much as we can here. It makes a little bit easier path to get into zone. But because of where the zone presented itself, not only obviously in 4th zone would they have had zone, but they were comfortable in the 3rd before throwing those shockwaves. So now you have to think about it this way. They've used some vital resources they're going to need for the mid and late game, or for the end parts of the mid game and the actual late game itself. And these resources are not easily reacquired. So to use them up as swiftly as they did is definitely not the play. And unfortunately, Trank is going to go down. That is actually one of our top players. Hold on. Where did Trank end up on the leaderboard?
I believe around 8th place. They started out the day in 1st, though, with that starting victory royale, and they've been the most consistent team on the day up until the back half. And we talk about, are you a front half team or are you a back half team? I think it's all about how you handle the nerves. There's a lot of money on the line. This is the final game of a tournament with $30,000 prize pool. That is absolutely incredible. I'd be shaking if I was in some of these players' positions, but NPen, K-Burbs, Jayth, they've been here before. They've been on the top of their game throughout all of the zero build competitions, whether it be collegiate, in-game, or just third party. They're on top of it, and they're just looking to bring it home here today.
Yeah, while they're on top now, it doesn't mean they'll be able to maintain it as this game continues on. So many of the top teams still involved here. But one notable name we did see go down the elimination feed not too long ago was Fluger. Now, I don't know if his team is fully out here, but he was one of those challengers in the top 5 going into game 6. So it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out. But another player in Redux close by to our top team in Jayth, K-Burbs, and NPen. This could be the fight that defines the top spot. If they get into a fight with Redux, if the engagement begins to ensue and one team wins over the other, it's almost certain that is your champion on the day. So it's exciting to watch, but man, does it make me nervous.
Makes you nervous, makes all of these players nervous. You can see all the porta bunkers down. No player even wants to peek to even shoot. They just want to play their positioning. They want to play for as safe as they possibly can. But if you can't do that, you might as well grab one elimination there, like Bobby does. I think 4 or 5 for this team at the moment. 4 in the back of Crisp, our previous Collegiate Cup champion, but their positioning looks to be so pressured. We even see a player out all the way in zone at the moment. They have the zone pull, but they're sitting in storm, so I don't think they can hold that position. And no, I believe they eventually go down there. That's going to be Nostalgia, unfortunately taken out, leaving us with 11 teams and a lot of games still left to be played.
A lot to be played out, but here it is. The final moments here, folks. Only 11 teams remain in it in game number 6, and Crisp is one of them. Again, one of the top 3, still involved, still alive, and trying to convert this into a sweet first place spot. But Snap Games, Aim Reds, Capo, another team here in the top 10, looking to try and put as many points on the board as possible, but Crisp has gone down. I have seen the Crisp knock in the feed, but it does look like Femboy and his teammate and Nevify should be able to get him back, but it is going to be a close one. Now though, Pow, Redux, Milks just rotating. The launchpad play has come through, and it looks like if they see Nevify, this could be third place, taking out second.
This definitely could be, but the zone, look at it right now. It's so much water. Nobody knows where to go. Skulls gets absolutely beamed. That's 4th place, completely dismantled. Fear Scav, Skullsy managed to make it into the zone. Jaith, Npen, K-Burbs in absolute chaos. Frosty comes in. Jaith fully taken out. They finish out in 9th. Frosty on a sliver of HP. Can't do anything. Just has to sit, pray that no team looks to pressure him in this position. I don't even know what this positioning is, but luckily teammates are still up. They still have a chance of getting these revives. I'm not even sure if they're in zone. I'm not even sure if they're gonna let this team take. Leroy jumps in and takes those final eliminations onto that team.
What is happening? Everybody is jumping in on everybody. Literally definition of aggression here in these final moments as all these players just try to claim any points that they can in these final moments. Nounsy still in this game. Pal still in this game. So top 10 teams still involved here in these final moments, but I'm looking. And there is one team that I do not see quite yet. That team is Jathan Co. Could another team have taken them out? Could somebody claim the first place spot here in the final moments? It's going to be so close as now Leroy, Cloutsy, Kashi moving forward. Nevify goes down here yet again to Pow. And again, Pow, one of our top 3. So every point counts here between the two, and it all comes down to this. They have 135 points. As of right now, that could be the turning factor for the top place spot, but unfortunately, War, we just don't know yet.
We just don't know yet. They just need to clutch up a few more points. They confirm an elimination. I'm not sure if that's going to count in their favor, though. Bobby's just sitting on the outside. They both know how valuable these points are, but no, Chris gets taken out. Bobby on a sliver of HP goes to the sky, but not able to land in the tree, and only going to be a top 5 placement for this team. Cloudsy camping the storm. The shockwave comes in, but it's mistimed. Now goes down. Who's left here? It's Leroy clutching his solo. Takes out 1, takes out 2. That's just going to be Scav, Skullsy, both down. Leroy camping in a corner. No utility, no mobility. Completely taken out. I don't even know who won that game. What? It's going to be Fear, the solo player. He didn't even know he qualified today, but he made it into the final game. The UWM plus UMN team take the final victory royale.
What a way to finish the day. A team who we had talked a little bit about, but not in the top 10. Not fully expected them to climb in and just walk away with a fantastic victory royale to finish the day. So honestly, props to them. Incredible finish to these 6 games here of Zero Build competition and to the end of the fall season, folks, because this is it. This is the end of the Zero Build fall season for the CCA Collegiate Cup viewing party featuring Fortnite. But man, War, final thoughts on the day before we throw back to the analyst.
I feel like this Collegiate Cup was a culmination of all the other Collegiate Cups, the Zero Build trios building up into one. I saw so many creative, innovative plays that I thought I would never see. We started the season, completely different map, completely different meta, and now it feels so refined. It feels like these players have found their rhythm, found their groove, and I'm just so excited for the future of both Zero Builds and Collegiate Fortnite because I know it's only going up from here.
It is only going up from here. But listen, War, it's been a pleasure casting with you. It's been a pleasure hearing you cast, hear you on the analyst side. That's going to be it for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out. But now we throw it back over to the desk, who's going to break down these final moments. So Seb, Lash, and of course, my man Panda, take it away.
I don't
Super
know.
nice
I don't know where to think this is going. Also, great transition, but what? Where's the standings? Get us the standings right now. Stop the count.
It is so close right now. It is unimaginably difficult. You cannot call it. We saw Jaith, NPen, and K-Burbs fall there in 9th place at a total of 144. And then we saw Bobby, Crisp, and Nevify there in those final moments get so close to 139, though. So there's an outlier out there somewhere that could easily have caught up.
Oh, wow. Look at that. A limb. Off the chrome phone. That was nuts. Sorry, continue.
No, it's close. Look, Jaith, NPen, and K-Burbs may have had enough points to just barely solidify the top spot. However, we didn't see them go down, so I'm not sure exactly what they finished off with. So these last few moments here that we're watching right now literally define the entire competition. That's how close it is. No one can call it. No one here knows yet. And we're all going to find out here shortly together.
I'm not spoiling myself. So I'm not asking the back room or anything. I want to wait and see, because at this point, I think it is very much out of the top two how it will turn out. And especially, I think with Jaith's team getting around 9th or so, I think NPen might have lived a bit longer, so we don't exactly know, of course, because we weren't in the game. But we still have, Redux lasting for ages. We have Xep still putting in the work, but I don't think that'll qualify him for a top spot. However, when we look at all of this team, okay, one, rip my prediction. Yes, I get it. It sucks. But I take the L's with it happens. Okay, listen, I went with my gut and it didn't pan out. But Fear taking the win here off the solo. Big congrats to him. However, I don't think they are in contention for the title. I don't think. I remember correctly, probably not. But still, it's a good way to end things off. But when it comes to the standings, both of these teams with Pal's team. Okay. All right. We're ready. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's see the standings. What do we got? We got G!
Wow.
And a tie for second place at 140 score off of Crisp and Pal's teams. Jaith locking down the top spot at 146 score, just barely edging out the top two. And Nounzi and Xcept taking the 4th spot. I'm kind of curious, production, how are we going to handle the second place spot? Is it done by a limbs? Is it done by a placement score? It will be done by a limbs. Okay, so Redux, Pal, and Milks will take the 3rd spot, and with it, the 3rd place prizing. But what a way to end things off. Of course, first place, Jaith's team, K-Burbs, and NPen taking down the $6,000 in first place. What a nail biter, Lash.
Absolutely just incredible. We were there in the final moments, not at all seeing who was going to take home the win. It may have been Redux, Pal, and Milks, but unfortunately just did not get enough eliminations there in the final moments. If they would have gotten the Victor Royale, though, which would have gotten them tied to first place, they still would have lost to the tiebreaker of Victor Royales of Jaith, K-Burbs, and NPen, which honestly just paints the entire story of how dominant they have been all day long, Panda.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we went into this competition, the first 2 games showed itself, and it didn't look like Jaith, K-Burbs, and NPen were finding that early success that they really wanted. But like we said before, they're a second half team. And as soon as game 3 hit, they knew that was their last opportunity to put some points on the board to even try to climb back in. Because again, if you think about it, without that game 3 performance, it would not be in first right now. Every game from 3 to 6 defined where we see them in the leaderboard. And just barely, they walk away with 6 points ahead of second place in that championship. So congratulations to your November Collegiate Cup 0 build trios champions in Jaith, K-Burbs, and NPen.
K-Burbs profile pick aside, what a run from these 3 gentlemen here. fantastic way to finish things off, of course, for the season. And it's so hyped to see how much with Zero Build developing as it is, just these guys putting in that work, getting super hot in the second half, like you mentioned. Of course, not starting off too great, almost leaving things out. We saw that Nounsey's team, they look pretty well on fire for the first half, but as soon as things turned around for them, they got immediately into it. And sure, that last game wasn't great, but it was enough, which is all that matters at the end of the day.
It is indeed exactly what matters to give them that top spot. And I'm just going to give a little shout out there to our 5th place team of Scolds, of Paris and Brutal. Just magnificent consistency throughout the day. And unfortunately, falling in game number 5 was their downfall. However, I guarantee you that is a team that I'm looking out for future collegiate events, because I'm liking the way they're playing. I'm noticing a couple things I won't share yet, but they're definitely going in the spreadsheet.
They're going in the sheet. All right. Well, that will be it for us this evening. It's been a long 6 games, so I want to leave it to Lash and Panda. Anything that you guys want to say before we end off tonight, Lash?
I just want to say it was a magnificent Zero Build Collegiate Cup throughout the fall. And I'm looking forward for the future. Obviously, we have Zero Build right after that, or after this, so I'm looking forward to that.
Panda?
Yeah, look, it was an incredible opportunity to be a part of this entire season of Collegiate Cup Fortnite action. So thank you for an incredible close to the fall season for Zero Build. But the solo competition, the standard BR that's coming in just about an hour, is going to be another tight-knit competition to close out the season. So if you're tuned in right now, make sure you tune in for that and do not miss it, because it's going to be an incredible one.
Yes, as mentioned, solos will be on shortly. So we're not going to be gone too long. I think I'm gone. I don't know, unless I just get randomly. No, it's fine. Won't be gone too long. We hope you enjoyed this evening. It's been a fantastic day of Zero Build trios. I don't get to come here often, so huge thanks for having me on and being so welcoming as always. It always is really fun to come on these things because it's so hype, and I do like watching especially Zero Build. This is my first time doing like a Zero Build broadcast, and it really turned out really exciting. So I'm very happy that we got that experience. But a huge thank you as well to the production boys, JSA especially, always putting in the work, eFuse, as well as you for watching and for keeping us here and enjoying the broadcast, because we put in a lot of work into these things. So we'll see you guys in just over an hour as we switch things up, and I'll see you guys next time. Love you. Have a good night.